All righty.
Here we go. Hey, everybody on YouTube. How y'all doing tonight? Hanging on out. Got my hair down. It's all over the place. I don't know what the hell's happening here with it, but that's okay. A little bit of a different camera angle. I think I'm liking this one a little bit more, but we got a great show for you guys tonight. The legendary Jim Goodall is with us. We're going to learn everything about spy planes, what's hiding in the sky above us. What are they flying now? If anybody knows, Jim knows. Let's give a shout out before we bring Jim in here to everybody who is in our chat room so far. We got Jack Clark. How you doing? Heather, you're looking stunning tonight. Go 66. Boo. Adnome, always a pleasure to have you here. The Becky Belling, she is beautiful. Jurassic Joey's looking good tonight. So is Tina Smith. Good to have you here. Little Deborah, good to see you. Worsley, you're looking Worsley enough tonight. That's acceptable. Third Phase of Moon, talking about how you worked with Jim on your latest documentary. Classy guy, this James Goodall. I don't know where he gets it from, but he is all class. Crystal Light is here. Game Vet, good to see you. Steam Train Mark, please let us know how tomorrow is looking, since you live in the future. Let Jim and I know whether or not we are alive tomorrow. We would appreciate the update. Teresa, looking tantalizing tonight. The Stu Gerson, everyone. Right there, Stu. Thank you so much. Walter, thanks for coming on in. Always a pleasure. Game Vet, good to see you here. Millennium, nice to see you. Minister Elaine, amen. Let's get an amen. Human Carl is here, everyone. Human Carl, which means it's not Alien Carl, it's Human Carl, one of our favorite veterans who listens to this show. Let's give Human Carl a little bit of a clap for being one of our fantastic veterans who listens to this show. Thank you, Human Carl, for your service. Mark, how you doing, man? Chris Jarvis, good to see you. Spookles the cat, always looking gorgeous. Renee, you look stunning tonight. Hillary, always a pleasure. Jules, how's your hair, darling? How's your hair? Give us a hair update, please. Devin, good to see you. Scott, always a pleasure. What the heck? What the hell? New York Anthony, how you doing, buddy? Fapster, always a pleasure. Appreciate that. Mr. Goodall, how are you?
I'm doing great. And you?
Oh, just hanging out. You know.
Yeah, we're just hoping for a cold front to come through. I live in Tucson, and I think we've hit 60 plus days of over 105. And it was 100. It was only 101 today. It's supposed to be 100. I think it's supposed to be 107 tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, and it's been this way through May. I mean, it won't go away.
Oh, damn it! Eh?
But it is what it is. I don't shovel snow in September, October, November, December, January, February, March, there, or April, because I did when I lived in I did when I lived in Minnesota.
I know. Little shot at the old Canadian kid here, eh? Making me shovel my driveway and my. Oh God, it's coming! It's coming.
Hey, there's very few Canadians have been to every territory and province in Canada, and I have.
I know. I have not.
I've been there with them. It's just. I dealt with the retail industry back in the early '70s. So if there was a Bay Company, if there was an Eaton's or Simpson Sears or a Woolco or whatever, I was there. I went to some god awful places.
I don't blame you.
I don't know if you're familiar where Transcona, Manitoba is, but it's the very, very north tip of Lake Winnipeg, which is about 600 miles long.
Yeah.
And I had to go up there for 2 hours, and the airplane landed, and I had some trouble with getting a car, so it delayed me about 20 minutes. I went and did what I had to do, came back, and I missed the airplane by about 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And the next plane wasn't for 3 days. There's not a lot of fun in Transcona, Manitoba.
Let's give a shout out to a few more people who have joined us in the chat room. Ronald Penton, good to have you here. What the heck? Daniel, always a pleasure. Itzy Zaza, good to see you here. Good evening, Eva. Much love to you, my sister. Annie, you're looking awesome. Robert Two Crows, what a pleasure to have you here. Remember to hit that thumbs up and do us the favor. Get ready for a great show. Do a little shopping at the SOR Vault on our website. And join the Space Travelers Club. Prairie Fire, good to have you here, man. Always a pleasure. Krusty, thank you for coming on in. Cat Chaser, good to see you. And here we go. We're going to get things going right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, especially if you're listening in on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to check out our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. James C. Goodall's true passion has always been airplanes. The spookier, the better. That's probably why he's working on numerous books that he continues to pump on out about everything aviation, including the 75th anniversary of the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Mr. Goodall has met with generals, admirals, and way too many political types to last a couple of lifetimes. He's also been blessed to join a cast of characters he calls his friends, like John Lear and the infamous or famous Bob Lazar. How about Ben Rich, the late retired president of Lockheed Skunk Works? He and Ben spoke at least once every 3 months over 25 years. Yes, this man has been there and done it all, including getting the first ever photograph of an F-117 stealth fighter. Mr. James Goodall, always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
Oh, I'm delighted to be back on. Everything is great. My 75th anniversary book will be out in February. It's from Osprey at 332 pages, just shy of 1,100 photos, about half of which never been in print. And I cover 43 Skunk Works programs. There's probably 43 that I don't know about, but I cover 43 from the XP-80 up to their compact fusion reactor that they're working on.
Jim,
it's always fun.
Go ahead.
Go on. I mean, I do this one because I have a passion for it and I absolutely love it. And my teachers in high school knew I hated term papers. I hated writing, and my 27th book is at my publishers. But I also do it to keep my mind sharp. I look at 1,100 photos, and my goal is never duplicate a photo in a photo essay, and that's what most of my books have been in the last 10 years. They've been photo essays. So you get 600 or 700 photos. Fortunately, my mind is still sharp enough because I keep doing this. And it helps, and I enjoy it, and because of my activities, I meet people like you.
Oh, yes.
And it was just a delight to meet you last, was it January or February? This year is sort of a blank all the way around. But
Well, you know what? We were just talking before we went to air that if there was no COVID scare going on, you would actually be in studio for this tonight, because the Abbotsford Air
Correct.
Show, which is one of the world's top air shows and one in top in North America, would have taken place last weekend in Abbotsford, British Columbia. Then you were going to drive up here and hang out for a couple of days just to see the sights and maybe do a little Bigfooting or whatever it came to. But I mean, unfortunately, it kind of sucks that it's gone that way, because you'd be staying right here in the studio right now.
Yeah, and I was really looking forward to it, and so was my wife. She was, she absolutely loves air shows, and she loves the Abbotsford show. First time one she ever went to was in 2009, and we've been to 3 since. And it just it was a big disappointment. But with everything that's going on in the world, and the border's still closed. I haven't heard it if it's changed or not. But it's just, I don't know. We're going to have to do 2020 all over again. That's all.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to do.
I don't think we should.
No. Remember
Yeah.
when we were all looking forward to 2020 because it was such a cool looking year, 2020? Boy,
Yeah.
If you got a bingo card for disasters, this is the year to have it. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. I mean, if you really disgusted at somebody, now you said you're just full of 2020, and just
right.
go at it that way, or you're about as welcome here as 2020.
Yeah, no kidding.
So 2020 is be a meme for the rest of our lives, at least.
No kidding, my friend.
But my mom, yeah. So what are we going to kick around this evening?
There's always people, Jim, who are listening who may not be familiar with who our guest is tonight. And for someone like you who is considered an absolute living legend in this field when it comes to anything to do with spy planes, anything to do with top secret planes, Area 51, black projects, there's only a couple of voices that you could really trust in this. It is you and your protege, Michael Schratt, who I absolutely will fangirl over anytime I see or hear the guy, and I gotta ask you, I know you have a tight relationship with Michael, and we'll get to him in a minute, but through your time of doing what you've done in your life with this subject, how did you gain the trust of generals, admirals, politicians in order to get some of the biggest secrets in the military out to the public?
Well, I've been blessed with a good brain. I can thank my mother and my father. My dad was a professor, postgraduate engineering at Stanford. We had a laboratory, not a laboratory or a workshop. We had a laboratory in the back of our house there in the Mountain View, Los Altos area where I grew up. And I was blessed with that. But I think the reason why people dealing with spooky programs where I have become successful is I don't push them. If they say no comment on something, I really don't want to talk about that, fine. Let's go on to the next subject. We eventually will get back to that and they'll feel more comfortable. But if someone says, don't quote me on this, I don't. If someone says, I'll tell you next year, I'll make it a point that the following, a year from now, I'll call them up and say, hey, you were going to tell me about such and such. So I've always been a man of my word. I don't have much to give, but I do give my word, and it's proven to be a good word. And I think it's one of the reasons I got along so well with Ben Rich. One, he liked my best friend, who at the time was John Andrews from Testers. And John had a longer relationship with Ben than I did. Mine started about 1970, and he passed away in 96. And I think John goes back actually into the 60s because he came up with the Hawk U-2 kit. It was a 1/4-inch U-2 kit in 1959. This is before Powers was shot down, and it was still a classified program. So it sort of started with him. And we would, but when we would get on the phone, we'd always laugh because we knew where phones were being monitored. And we just try to be good citizens and not. You have to gain someone's trust before they're willing to spill the beans. So that's the best way to put it. And I have a friend that works at NSA. I won't tell you where he works, or what location he works. But we've been friends for a very long, long time, and I've never asked him any questions. And about 6 months ago, I sent him an email, and he was in the middle of nowhere, not in this country, in another English-speaking country. And I said, "Do you believe in UFOs?" And I mean, within 10 seconds, I got an email back. "Why, did you see one?" I said, "No." And then he got back to me. He says, "I can't say anything else, on phone or on emails or whatever, but they're here."
Well, that's nice confirmation.
Next time I'm in, I said, next time I'm in either Hawaii or in Florida, I'll let you know, and maybe you can fly out and we can sit down and have a discussion. So whether he'll tell me anything I don't already know, I don't know. They have monthly lie detector sessions they go through, and they know. I mean, virtually all their emails are looked at, even their private email accounts. I'm sure they had to be divulged to everybody, so there's no secret. So I don't know, but that's how I've over the years. Yeah, I'm 75 years old. I've been doing this since I was 30. Actually, younger than that. So I've been doing it the majority of my adult life. I've been asking questions of my government, demanding answers from my government, tracking down people. I started doing this before there was an internet. So you couldn't go on the line and punch in something and hopefully it's in the web somewhere. I had to get on an airplane, and fortunately I traveled all over the country for most of my adult life on business. But I would schedule if I was in Burbank. I mean, I remember the first time I was in Ben's office, and it was like 73. I told him, I said, "I have a present for you, and I'd like to bring it by and hand deliver it." And it was a 1/4-inch vacuform model with a plaque, and a very, very nice stand of the D-21 drone. They're almost Mach 4, 100,000-foot drone that they developed to overfly China and stuff. And you had to get permission even to get in the parking lot there in Burbank. And I'm sitting in the lobby, and I have a parade of older engineers walking by because they couldn't talk about this little airplane. And then Ben came out, and I thought I was going to hand it to him. And he said, "Well, come back with me." So we went into Kelly Johnson's old office, which was now Ben's. And we're talking about my friend John Andrews, and he said, "Well, I referred to him as that son of a bitch from Testers," and he put said, "But he's a son of a bitch in a loving way." Ben really, really enjoyed John's letters, and so that's when he goes into his little office off the side. He comes out with his 10 by 20 high resolution print of 10 Blackbirds. He said, "This is just to show you that there were more than 3 of them." And then he put it back. And a couple of days later, when I got home, I got a package from the Central Intelligence Agency. "Oh, we were going through our files, and we found some old photos that we thought you might enjoy."
Well, that's nice.
And it turned out to be. Pardon?
That's nice. Just get a nice little package from the CIA with photos.
Yeah, it turned out to be the photo of the 10 airplanes plus an A-12 in the air, an M21 with a D-21 on top of it. And it was they just happened to find these things. No, it's because Ben decided that we can release these and convince the CIA to, well, don't give them a real high quality image, but this will satisfy him for a bit. And what's really ironic, I saw my first Blackbird at Edwards Air Force Base on March 10th, 1964. I was 18 years old, just before my 19th birthday. And it's affected me the rest of my life. And I got out of the service in 66. And in 68, I wrote a letter to Lockheed, to Department of Defense, to Air Force and to CIA asking for photos of the Blackbird, and I was willing to pay the going rate for a color 8x10, and their official policy was not to cooperate. So I started, and there was nothing classified back then of what I was requesting. So I started digging. The more I dug, the more I found out. The more I found out, the deeper I dug. So if you're out there and you're researching and you're trying to get as much information on a craft or an event such as the Sasha crash or a sighting or whatever it is, you cannot just ask a few questions and hope you can get an answer. You're going to have to dig, and sometimes you're going to have to dig and dig more for a long time. My Blackbird book, which came out a year and a half ago, it's 711 photos, and it took me 50 years to do that book because I wasn't going to be satisfied until I was able to tell the complete story, and I did. And it's been well received, even by guys who don't like me. So you have it's perseverance, but it's also, you have to respect the person or persons you're trying to get information from or cooperation from, or however you want to look at it, because that's the only way that they're going to open up and share stuff that they know probably isn't classified, but it isn't known to the general public, and that's how I've gotten where I am today.
Right.
You just keep on plugging. You don't give up.
Jim, I got to ask you, in regards to the secrets that you have been told, are there secrets you will take to the grave? Because you're a pretty public guy. You like getting this information out. However, you walk a fine line with the connections you've made and the trust that you have.
But I make it a special effort not to violate anybody's trust. I can't say I've been 100% successful, because even people that I don't know, somehow I pissed off over the years. But no, there isn't anything that I'm going to take to my grave. If I know something, and I don't have a top secret clearance anymore. I had one for 27 years when I was in the Air Force and the Air Guard. I had to have the same clearance as my boss because I was a historian my last 16 years. But I don't have a clearance today, so I'm not worried about losing my clearance. And stuff that I know, some of it's really old, but it's never been made public. My job is to make it public. That's why I got into book writing, I guess. I wasn't a big proponent of the B-2 stealth bomber. I thought it was overly expensive and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I ended up, I've been to Whiteman 5 times. I've been up in the cockpit. I've flown the simulator. I mean, it's just, it's because I don't violate people's trust and I don't give up. And for anybody out there that's listening, and that you have a project you're working on, was it Thomas Edison said, I didn't fail at developing the light bulb, but I found 1,000 ways that don't work. So it's something you just if your goal is to do what Michael Schratt did on, he's one of the best researchers out there, and his ebook that he has it's fantastic. It's fully illustrated. It has all the research paperwork in there. The copies of the original drawings from the eyewitnesses. I mean, he's done a job of a dozen people, and he's done it all by himself. And he is more focused than I ever was, because I had other interests when I was doing this. I had a wife. I had 2 kids. I had fast cars. I was in the Air Guard, and I traveled a lot. Michael has has focused virtually all his free time in gathering good information from qualified sources, and he said that I may be taking too much credit for me, but Michael has indicated that he got into this because of me, because of stuff I've done, which I don't know if I think he's just trying to make me feel good, because he could have done all this without ever knowing me. But we've been friends for 15 years, and I've known him since he started doing this. I always knew there was a Michael Schratt guy out of Chicago. We had a Chicago exchange, and it wasn't until he actually moved. He had a contract job with, I think it was Honeywell. And it was here in Oro Valley, Arizona, and he called me up, and I talked to him many, many times over the years. And he said, "Well, I live right off of Tangerine, which is the main road coming into Oro Valley off the interstate." I said, "Oh," said, "Come on down." So he would call first to make sure that I was in town, because I still do travel a lot. And he started bringing me his goodies, and I just enjoyed it, and I enjoy his passion. And he's laser focused on doing what's right and putting together as much information so the general public can see it. Me taking something to the grave that I can't talk about. Unless I signed a piece of paper saying I'll go to jail if I divulge something, and I never have signed that paper in anything that we're dealing with today. If I find out something, I'm gonna let the world know one way or the other, either in books, in programs like yours. I've been a talking head on over 50 TV programs, and that cracks me up. And you say I'm a legend. No, I am just Jim Goodall, who loves what he does.
You're a legend.
I'm nobody special.
Yeah, you are.
The only thing that sets me apart from most everybody in the bump in the night spooky stuff is I knew Bob Lazar before he went to work out in the desert. That's my real claim to fame, and the fact that I'm probably the world's leading historian and authority on the Blackbird and pretty much Area 51. I can say I've been in there twice, well, actually 3 times. The last time I was with John Lear, and that was a kind of funny one.
Well, we've only got about 45 seconds before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour here. So I don't want to get too excited, but you know what? Everybody always gets excited when the words Area 51 come up. So I really think, Jim, that's where we should go in the next half hour.
Sounds good to me.
Works for me too.
Good.
Let's make it happen. And yes, I will disagree with you on one point. I do believe you are a legend. I do believe that you are someone to look up to in this field. And considering I have control of your microphone, I can have the final word on that. So that's what I'm going to do, my friend. James Goodall is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and we are going to get into Area 51 talk. What is actually happening in the Nevada desert? Is it aliens? Is it more? Or is it just a bunch of human stuff that we're just testing out because we got nowhere else to test it and it just seems like a lot of fun toys? We'll find out from James Goodall coming up on Spaced Out Radio. That's a good first half hour, boss. Good first half hour.
Good.
All right. I just got to blow my nose. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
All right, I'm back.
You are. That's good.
Yep. We're back. Let me just put my headphones on so I can hear you. There we go.
Good. You guys have any forest fires up in your area?
My sister was just allowed back home in her area of Penticton today. No, yesterday. Yesterday.
Where's she at?
Penticton, which is about 4 hours east of Abbotsford.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we're getting smoke from the fires in California, and
Yeah.
I mean, I could hardly see the mountains today, and I'm surrounded by them. So, and it's go outside, and I thought it was going to rain because it was gray and overcast, but it was smoke. So, but we had a fire in June. For the month of June, most of July, 120,000 acres. And the Catalinas are what they call a sky island. They just sort of pop up. They're not part of a mountain range. And the desert southwest is filled with a lot of them. And it pushes up to about 10,000 feet. But there was some canyons or whatever that hadn't had a fire in recorded history. And you just know the underbrush and everything else, it just had to be just ready to go boom. So, but it was lightning caused.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mother Nature's way of clearing out the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I got to let my audience know because I've gone to my secret identity for the show for this next half hour. Okay. I am. My name is El Ovni Volador. El Ovni Volador is my new name. You do not know me as my previous incarnation. I am El Ovni Volador. In English, the flying UFO.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I'm going out get my chainsaw out tomorrow, go get some firewood. It's going to be great. Going to be great.
When does it start getting cold up there?
The nights are starting to go into single digits.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's Celsius, though.
Yeah, that's Celsius.
Yeah, but that's still cold. Still cold.
Yeah, but the cool part about it is it feels really good at night. Like I sleep with the window wide open.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I sleep with the window wide open, so I'm not too worried about it. So, I mean, it'll start getting cold, probably around October 15th.
What do you get down to? What's the coldest you get down to?
The coldest that I have been in up here is minus 37 Celsius.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Because 40 Celsius and minus 40 Fahrenheit are the same. So 36 minus 36 is cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true.
I've been to minus 71 in Coke Junction, Alaska, February 65.
That's cold.
Dead still.
Yeah.
It's working outside. I had to take my parka off and just put a field jacket on because I was working so hard.
Hold on, buddy. Here we go.
Stop.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right, music's about to come on. Music's on. Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on SOR's Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary researcher and author James C. Goodall. Now, Jim has been all around the Black Projects world for a long, long time, coming up on 50 years. This man has been there, seen it all, done it all, and is considered one of the foremost public experts on what is going on at Area 51. Jim, welcome back.
Well, it's good to be here. I mean, I've enjoyed all our conversations we've had, so it's a pleasure.
I think so too.
Pleasure.
I think so too.
Yeah.
What first brought your intrigue to Area 51?
Well, it had to do with my passion for the Blackbird. I mean, I saw my first one in March of '64. But during that same time frame, I was at Edwards. I had to go fly to a remote location to install some telemetry, because that's what I was at Edwards for, to support Category 1 testing for ground-based telemetry for the YC-141 Starlifter, the XB-70 Valkyrie, and that's that 6-engine bomber, Mach 3 bomber. They only built 2, crashed 1. And at the time, a classified program, which turned out to be the YF-12 Interceptor, or the fighter version of the Blackbird. And when I was working on the Lockheed hangar, and I said, "Well, tomorrow we have to go install companion equipment at another location. So you're to be here at base ops at 0630. Go through the paperwork, make sure our ID, we had our line badges and everything else. And we get into a Fairchild F-27, high wing turboprop. Windows are blocked, so you can't see out. We take off. We're flying for about 90 minutes or so. And we land. We're still out in the desert. We pull up next to a hangar. They had 3 or 4 buses on each side of this F-27, so you really couldn't see anything but the hangar door we're going to go into, and the 6 buses on either side of the airplane. We were told not to go look, just don't go looking around. It's not a sightseeing tour. So I was in there for about 5 hours installing the equipment. We had box lunches, and then we left, and we flew back to Edwards, again, another 90 minutes or so. So knowing what I know today, I was in Area 51 for 5 hours in, I think it was April of 1964. The next time I was inside the perimeter of Area 51, I was with John Lear. And I had just photographed the F-117 at the Tonopah test range fence line. And we had headed back out, and we had come... gone east on US 6, and then at Warm Springs we went south on Nevada 375, which is the extraterrestrial highway, they've renamed it. And we had something to eat at the Little Alien, and then we decided we're gonna drive all the way down the back road into Area 51. It's a 4-lane dirt road. And we were heading down the road, and I have a rented Cadillac Seville, and we were using it as an all-terrain vehicle. And we're probably halfway between the highway and the guard shack, and an A-7, which is a Air Force jet. Used. The Navy had a lot of them. The Air Force didn't have a whole lot of them. They call them sloughs. Stubby little ugly fellows. He had other words for it. But we had one come right over our car about maybe 50 feet, not 500, but about 50 feet, maybe 100 feet, doing about 500 knots, and about blew us off the road. And John and I jump out, and we can hardly see for the dust. And the valley floor, and in typical valley, the valley floor is domed, and we're on the north side of the crest. And this A7 flew right over us and disappeared. And then next thing we see him, he's corkscrewing straight up to about 10,000 feet and heads right into Area 51. So that was kind of exciting. So we go through the foothills. We saw signs, no photography allowed, this or that, and whatever. We come up to a guard shack. We're about a quarter mile to a half mile inside Area 51, and you can see the whole base. You can see the whole base from there. And this nice young security guy comes out. He's in his black camos. He has his M16, on his shoulder strap. He didn't have it in his hand. I came and said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "Well, we saw a road. We decided to drive down it." And I said, "We're bird watchers." "Oh, okay." And about that time, another guard came out of the guard shack. Now, this guy was a reject to the NFL because he was too big. No neck. He's putting a 30-round clip into his M16, and he loads the chamber. And John said, "Well, you mind if we take a picture of you in the guard shack?" Yeah, and the guard shack, of course, you could see all of Area 51 behind it. And the big guy said, "Yes, I do mind. And if you do take a picture, you're gonna be interviewed by some very, very unfriendly people for a long, long time." I looked at Lear and I said, "Time to go." And we blasted out. That was the second time. The third time, my third wife she was pretty good with a sewing machine, and I had gotten your survival blankets. They're insulated, but they're day glow orange on one side, your luminize on the other. And I had some infrared suppressive desert camouflage material, and I had a company actually do a quilt pattern on these two survival blankets that sewn together. Then I had her make me a poncho. Well, I just put it on with a hood, and if I heard something, I could just crouch down into the desert and pull everything together, and I was now a low observable as far as an infrared signature is concerned. So this is January or February. It's 25, 30 degrees Fahrenheit for you Canadians out there. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna walk in as far as I can. If I hear something, which is kind of dangerous for me because I'm very, very hard of hearing, so I climb over the fence. It's 3 strands of barbed wire, and there's a small, I guess, a runoff hill from the Groom Range, and I went over that, and I realized there's another hill over that. I went over about 5 or 6 of these. And I realized I still had about 5 or 6 miles to go, and half a dozen of these rises I had to go over, and I was sweating bullets. Here I am, a mile or two inside of Area 51 without authorization. And I will deny it to anybody if I get arrested. I think statute of limitations are over anyway. And so I heard airplanes a couple times. They were just hack airplanes. They were nothing. They were T-38s. One was a Twin Beach. Nothing spooky. But I decided I had to hightail back out of there. And I swear I lost 10 pounds. My shirt underneath this poncho was sopping wet. And I decided I wasn't going to do that again. But I do have a friend that crawled into Area 51 with a sniper suit. It looked like a two-legged tumbleweed. and he spent a full 24 hours. This is winter also. It was cool and cold. He got within about 150 yards of the runway. He had people walking, coming, driving by him and talking. He wasn't across any roads, but it was a day and a half in. Spent pretty much a day around. Nothing happened. That would, F-16s, F-4s, and stuff like that. And it took about a day and a half to crawl out. He said he won't do that again either. And he was a retired Army Ranger. So, but I have a certain love affair of Area 51 since I was in there in 1964. And virtually everything that I'm interested in is flight tested out of Area 51. The U-2, the F-117, the Blackbirds. They had the early stuff on the B-2 flew out of there, Tacit blew. The technology demonstrator for the F-117 HAB blue was flight tested out of there, and a lot of other stuff. A lot of Soviet fighters were flown and operated out of Area 51, and then around the far end on Papoose Lake is where Bob Lazar said that S4 is located. So it's just a really interesting place. You have questions?
Oh, lots of questions, my friend. When you first started learning about this base, it was still top secret. People were even denying that it even existed. What was it like being there during the height of this base in the middle of nowhere that people were whispering about, but nobody would admit that it was actually truly there?
I mean, it wasn't until the late 80s that the Air Force admitted that there was a classified flight test facility about 100 miles northwest of Nellis Air Force Base. But it wasn't signed by anybody. It wasn't from Nellis Air Force Base. It wasn't from Edwards Air Force Base. It wasn't from the Secretary of the Air Force's office, I don't think. It may have come from DOD, but it was something that was published. So I got it published, and I went and typed it up verbatim. And I went to Nellis Air. I'm retired Air Force, so I can get on military bases. I went to Nellis Air Force Base and went into the base commander. You have the wing commander, and then you have a base commander, and then all sorts of different functions. But I went into the base commander, who is the custodian of the base, and outlying bases in the Nellis, the Nellis range, the bombing range, and whatever. And I said, it was a female officer, and I said, "Ma'am, this is an official release from the United States Air Force or the Department of Defense saying that there's a place on a dry lake bed about 100 miles northwest of here. Can you put it on wing headquarters stationary and have the general sign it?" So we can't do that. I said, "Well, it's an official release." They said, "He's not authorized to talk about it." I said, "Okay." And she said, "You'll have to leave now." That's one of my. I've had a lot of people say, "Mr. Goodall, you're going to have to leave now."
Jim, I want to ask you. You got to know Bob Lazar. John Lear. They're known as a couple of real characters, and I mean that politely and with respect in this field.
They are.
There are others. David Adair said he launched a rocket into Area 51. If you go down to Dulce, there's Phil Schneider, who is long time deceased now, but he got into things. There are people who claim, like Bill Burns, about Area 52 at Dugway in Utah. I'm asking in regards to all of these characters that have come out about these secret facilities like Area 51, how true are these stories? And did you get to meet the others?
No, I haven't. I went around in a fairly small circle. the people back in the 80s and the 90s that we were called the interceptors, the Dreamland interceptors. I mean, we were like a bunch of silly girl sorority or something like that in high school or junior high school. We were called the Dreamland interceptors. John Andrews was Spy 1. Mike Dornheim who was the senior technical writer for Aviation Week. He was the Ayatollah. He's an Irish guy with a furrowed black beard, black hair, and he looked like the Ayatollah Khomeini. We had Jim Bakos, who we called Zero. Pete Merlin, we called the Magician. Stuart F. Brown, he was the senior technical writer for both Popular Science for about 11 years and then Fortune Magazine for another 10. And he's the minister of words. And Stuart gave me a nickname which I don't live up to, but he calls me the Great One because probably I look like Jackie Gleason, I guess. But it's a fun group of guys, and it was a group of people that came together. And Steve Douglas, I can't forget Steve Douglas. He's out of Amarillo, Texas, and he's an electronic eavesdropper. He has a mobile NSA facility in his camper. You look at it, and it has more antennas than some of your spooky electronic spy planes have today. And it was a golden era. It was when Whitesides Mountain that overlooks Area 51, it was still on public lands. When Glenn Campbell, not the singer, but the guy who put together the Area 51 Research Center. And when I say we, it was 3 or 4 of us with Glenn living there and Rachel. We would go up looking for easier ways to view Area 51. And we had gone down this one road, and we're still on public lands, and they had built a berm over the road. So we proceeded to remove most of the berm over the course of a day. And then we had walked up, and we found a driving path up to the top of what we call Freedom Ridge. And back then, none of the radios that Wackenhut or the security people at Area 51, none of them had encoded the radios. They were just, if you have the frequency, you could hear them transmit and receive. And as we're driving up there, I heard, and there was one guy said, "Oh my God, you see that?" Says they're driving up the top of that mountain. Oh, Jesus Christ, this would be like a friggin' drive-in theater. And at one time, we had about 10 cars up there. Everybody had their lawn chair, which is required. And those were the days. And they, because of the secret activity going on in Area 51, they pulled the mountaintop. They took 4,000 acres away from the public because of safety concerns. No, it was because they didn't want Goodall and company up there snooping on. I mean, you wouldn't even have to get out of your car. You just drive up there. You have the air conditioning on, the radio going on, the cassettes or your CDs playing or whatever, and you can sit there in comfort, waiting for something spooky to take off. Of course, if they knew you're up there, they're not going to fly. And I swear, I probably cost them multiple millions of dollars in delayed flights because Goodall was in the area. I even heard it on the radio. I was with Stuart Brown, Bill Sweetman from Aviation Week at the time, and a guy named Warren James, who is a rocket scientist at McDonnell Douglas, and down in Seal Beach. And we're getting a tour of the Nevada test sites. We've gone to the Sedan crater. We've gone into the houses. We went to Frenchman Flats. And we were, I forget where we were going. We were heading towards the Yucca facility, just the entrance. We weren't going to get a tour of the low-grade nuclear storage facility that's never been used. Heard on the radio, it said, security, this is, radio 12. They said, you have a Jim Goodall with you? I said, roger that. They said, they have to go inside the next 90 minutes. So they were flying something, and they knew I was there. So So it was, but those of us who were around in the 80s and the 90s, when we really discovered Area 51 and discovered TTR. I mean, they'd been there since 55, TTR since starting about 80. It was just a very, very free time out in the desert, and you didn't have the restrictions. It was pre 9/11, and boy, a lot of the rules changed after 9/11. Trust me. But it was a wonderful, wonderful time. I've been at the top of Whitesides, and it's a 2,000 foot climb through broken volcanic rock. So you don't want to go up there with a set of $300 boots. You want to go to Walmart, pick up a pair of utility boots, because by the time you come down off the mountain, you've shredded them. They aren't worth anything. And of course, when you're up there, you have to bring water. I know the first time I went up to overlook Area 51 with John Lear. John has real bad feet, and he had some food with him. And I had 2 gallons of water. 2 gallons of water weighs a lot when you're old and you're fat, and you're going from 4,000 feet up to about 6,200 feet. And we spent the night up there. It was cold. It was miserable. And been up there, say, 10 or 15 times since. Freedom Ridge another dozen times or so. North end of the fence line. Probably one of the most wonderful 5 days I spent with my son. Time he was he was 15. I think when it was, he was 15. And we had our campsite camouflaged, and I never go out in the desert unless I have about 20 by 20 camouflage netting, 20 foot by 20 foot, and I'll cover the car up and put it. I have tent poles and whatever, and I can make it very comfortable and a real low observable, because it's government issued camouflage netting, and it's infrared suppressive. So it makes for fun, and it was the most wonderful 4 or 5 days with my son I've ever spent with him. Just him and I, nothing else. There's no radio, no TV, no cell phones, nothing but him and I. And I remember I think the first night we're there. Now we're right at the northern fence line of Area 51. Anything from Area 51 takes off, we're going to see it. And unfortunately, in 4 days, nothing but hack airplanes and airplanes we already knew about were flying. But and as for people who live in the city or even live in the suburbs, they can't appreciate this. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and my son said, "Hey, Dad," he said, "today when the sky was crystal clear, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Now there's a big, huge cloud going across the whole sky." And I said, "James, that's the Milky Way." He had never seen it. And it was the stars were so bright. And of course, he's 15 years old, and his eyes are really, really good, unlike some of us. Right, Jim. I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we do have to go to break here at the top of the hour. Yeah, I know. Oh. It's flying on by, my friend. It is flying on by. I want to continue the Area 51 conversation after this, and let's go back to Operation Oxcart and where we are today, because there's a lot of technology that has gone through Area 51, and I know you know about it because you're the man, James C. Goodall, when it comes to Area 51 and everything to do with flight in the U.S. military. More Spaced Out Radio coming up after this. My friend, I'm just going to run my dog out. I'll be right back, okay? Am I doing okay? You're doing fantastic, and you look good. That's the main thing. I'll be right back.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
For the price of one cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hi there, this is the paranormal lawyer Michael W. Hall. I'd like to invite you to listen in each Sunday night where we're going to open up your eyes to everything strange and paranormal. I will be hosting some great guests with topics that affect us all, such as UFOs, ghosts, and everything paranormal. Let's learn together on Spaced Out Radio Sunday with myself, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Back, my friend.
What
we got
to
2.5
do?
minutes.
Oh, okay. As soon as it cools down a little bit here,
yeah,
I'm gonna rescue my German Shepherd.
Oh, what's he up to? Oh, he needs to go outside.
I'm going to rescue a German Shepherd.
Oh, yes. That's awesome, man. You totally should.
No, I had two of the most beautiful ones in the whole wide world, and I miss them dearly. And it has to be a German Shepherd. It can't be anything else. I mean, I love all dogs, but that one is, they're just a real special breed.
Yeah, they are.
So even, my wife is OCD, so I don't know how well she's going to do with little puffs of hair everywhere. But I bought a good vacuum cleaner. She said, "What's that for?" I said, "Because we're going to get a dog someday, and I want something that could suck up all the dog hair." So.
I don't blame you. Yeah. I know mine's shedding like anything right now.
Oh, especially this time of year when the weather gets fall and spring. That's when they shed their winter coat for their summer coat, and vice versa. Yeah. So what have you been up to into all these?
Nothing. I've been working my butt off, man. Working day and night. It's all I ever do is work. But I'm having fun. That's the main thing. So tomorrow I'm taking off. I'm firing up the chainsaw, putting on the plaid, and gonna go cut some trees, man.
All right. You be careful.
Oh yeah. Normally this time of year, I never go out alone. I'm going out with a buddy of mine. You gotta go in pairs for safety. But
you cut yourself with a chainsaw.
Radio and check out Tales today. Drop a comment.
I mean, normally I wear chainsaw chaps just to make sure. Hold on, music's on.
Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us, especially those listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jeff, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what this is. Elogofuscio hippopopo crunuris, and I'm not saying it twice, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary author and researcher James Goodall. Yes, Jim here is one of the brightest and best minds when it comes to what is actually hiding in Area 51. And we're going to continue that conversation right now. But first, before we do, Jim, I got a question from Joe. He's wondering what's happening and what's hiding out at China Lake.
Well, China Lake is the naval weapons test facility. So they don't do anything. If they're going to do something in a classified environment, they're more than likely going to do it at or near Area 51. It's not going to be something they do at China Lake. China Lake is too close to the population centers of the LA area. So it's primarily a weapons test facility. And I think if you the place where they would normally, if they were testing an aircraft for the Navy, it'll be Pax River in Maryland, unless it's a classified program, and then it would more than likely be at Area 51.
Got you. Okay, so what do you think they are hiding at Area 51 today? What's going on there?
Things they don't want us to see, plain and simple. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say what they have and what they don't have. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what they've done over the years. What they're doing exactly today is really anybody's guess. But what we have is they have made so many inroads into your artificial intelligence, and I got to believe stuff that Lazar was working on, maybe being utilized in on programs that are there. But 50 years ago, well, almost 50, a little over 50 years ago, 60 years ago, I should say, the Air Force and the CIA started working on the Blackbird. And that was only 15 years after Yeager had gone Mach 1 in a rocket-powered airplane, and they were looking to build an airplane that flew at sustained Mach 3 or 2,150 miles an hour for hours at a time. And no one had ever done that. The Lockheed Skunk Works has not been sitting on its laurels, if you want to call it that. They have 4,500 people there at Palmdale. They have others at labs at other locations, and possibly even permanent location at Kirkland, where they do a lot of electronic testing. So they haven't been resting on their laurels. But a good friend of mine who spent 34 years there at the Skunk Works, I asked him. I said, "Okay, what rings my bell?" He says, "Oh gosh, yeah, we all do." And I said, "Is there anything that you're aware of? I know you can't tell me one way or the other, but is there anything that you're aware of that I would get excited about?" And he said, "Jim, I hate to disappoint you, but there isn't anything that gets me excited, and I get more excited about things than you do." So as far as he was concerned, there's nothing for me to get excited about. And he said, "We're fighting a different war," but that doesn't mean that we've been sitting on our duff. I honestly believe that there's stuff going on that would really surprise the daylights out of you. I mean, I go back to my friend Ben Rich when he told me this. Now this is what 24 years ago, not 14 years, 24 years ago. When he told me just before he passed away, he said, "Jim, we have things out in the desert that's 50 years beyond what you can comprehend." I told that. I mean, I didn't hear that from somebody. Ben Rich told that directly to me. And he said, "If you've seen movies like Star Trek or Star Wars, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort." So what are they working at Area 51? Probably your wireless guess. I don't think they have... they don't have flying saucers or craft not of this earth, to quote the Pentagon official here almost a month ago. And I actually called Bob Lazar at the bequest of the Cousin brothers out in Hawaii. So I called up Bob and I said, "I know where he lives and I have his phone number." And Doc Skinner was there, and I had it in speakerphone. And Doc was kind of surprised. And I said, I talked to his wife first. And I said, "Bob around?" "Oh, yeah, he's in the lab." I said, "When are you coming to visit us?" I said, "Well, I was coming this September, but with COVID, I've cut back my traveling. And because nothing's open." So I called him up and I said, "Okay," said, "You finally been, validated." And he says, "Yeah, I got all excited at first, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Is it a diversion? Because I've seen nothing else other than, Fox News and the New York Times. No one else, really ran with this."
Right.
So, but a formal, unofficial Pentagon spokesman said that we have craft made not in this earth. That tells me that, no, they're UFOs or unknown aerial phenomenon, UAPs or something like that. It's a flying saucer, no matter how you look at it. But what are they doing today? I got to believe that what they did in 1960 when they started developing the Blackbird, that's 60 years ago.
Well, yeah,
that's an airplane that flew through the air.
Jim, that's something I want to ask you about. 3,400
feet. Yeah,
that's something I want to ask you about, because in World War II, yes, we were amazed at what the V-2 rockets could do on the Nazi Germany side, and wanted them for the West and that technology that goes along with that. But there's a lot of people out there who believe that there was some sort of technological intervention, because between the end of World War II in 1945, it was less than 15 years where now we're developing an aircraft that can fly Mach 3.3 plus in the SR-71 and the A-12.
Mm-hmm.
How did that change so quickly?
Well, what changed so quickly is electronics. And that really has nothing to do with the Blackbird. But in early 1947, we still had vacuum tubes. There was no such thing as integrated circuits. There was no such thing as superconductivity. There was all sorts of stuff that didn't exist in the early part of 1947. The war's over with. The economic engine has been turned on full blast. To bring us out of the war footing. And all of a sudden, you have all sorts of technologies. By the end of 47, now the only thing that is the common link between the early part of 47, when we're dealing with mechanical relays and vacuum tubes, is an event that happened out of a little town. I think it's called Roswell, New Mexico. I think that's the beginning that changed a lot of technology, because it was something that they actually had. And to quote a friend of mine said earlier that works for NSA. And so when I said, "Hey, dude, you believe in UFOs?" And they came back, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, did you see one?" And he said, "You can't say much, but they're here." So one of these days, I'll be able to track them down and sit down with them, and hopefully I live long enough. But it's what happened when you look at the Blackbird. If you've never seen one, if you go to the Air Force Museum, they have two. They have a YF-12 and an SR-71. If you go to San Diego Air and Space Museum, they have an A-12 there at Balboa Park. Go to Blackbird Air Park, they have an A-12 and an SR-71, a U-2 and a D-21. That all came together 60 years ago. Now, we haven't been sitting still. Technology hasn't been sitting still. 60 years ago, we developed an airplane made primarily of titanium with plastic panels. That was a low observable. It was the first operational stealth airplane. And we haven't been sitting on our duff. Over the, in the the Blackbird is 1950s technology. You look in the cockpit of that airplane, and if you're if you're a pilot, you're going to say, those are all steam gauges. That is archaic. Yes. And it developed the slide rules. They didn't have computers. They didn't have, the biggest computer they had was probably the equivalent of a Trash 80 from Radio Shack back in the early 80s. Not very powerful. Now we have stuff that they say they can think almost as fast and as clear as the human brain. That's frightening. Now we're looking at Terminator. And Skynet, I think they call it.
Yes.
What's the internet? And G5. Oh yeah, that's Skynet. Robotics is where everything's going. So my friend who retired here, 3 years ago now from the Skunk Works, he said we're not fighting the same enemy, but technology has not stopped. So everything that's out there is going to be gee whiz, and that's why I'm hoping to get a crew together to go up into the Groom Range to wait for something to fly by. Now, the real spooky stuff at Area 51, not referring to S4, but the airplane side of the test site. The real spooky stuff flies only on weekends, when 95% of the personnel at Area 51 have gone home and are off on Saturday and Sundays. And if it's a long weekend, it's better. They get 3 days of flight testing where they have minimal people that they have to be able to control.
Right.
If something really classified is going to fly, first of all, there's a number of things they do. The first thing in the morning, they get a satellite schedule that tells it it's visible light, it's infrared, it's this or that or whatever. And they schedule their flying in and around when those satellites are out, when they're overhead. The Russians do the same thing. They know when our spy satellites, unless, of course, the X-37 is dropping off stealth satellites that in unknown orbits. But most of the satellites up there, we know exactly when a Russian spy satellite is going to overfly Area 51 or over the Pentagon or over Dugway proving grounds. The spooky stuff flies from about an hour after sunrise for up to about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then typically they don't fly again. When it's cooler in the morning, the desert, those of us who live in the desert knows it can get hotter in blazes here. But you're more apt to see something really spooky on a weekend than you will during the week.
Jim, I want to hear.
There's too many.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. Go on.
Okay.
There's just too many people. There's too many people during the week at Area 51. So if something weird is going to fly, it's typically going to fly on the weekend if they don't want people to see it. I'm talking about employees and personnel that are assigned to and support Area 51.
All right. I have a question here from Chris in our chat room on YouTube. He is asking if you could talk about the story of Lieutenant Commander David Fruehauf, former SR-71 pilot, who allegedly chased a UFO in an SR-71.
My dad lived in Lynchburg, Tennessee, and Dave doesn't live that far from him. I've known Dave for quite a while while he was still in the Air Force. He had retired. He became the facility manager at Area 51 for 5 years, and that's why I tracked him down. And I went to his house. Now he now denies it. He didn't. But I asked him. I said, Dave. I said, do you believe in UFOs? He said, absolutely, positively, they do exist. I said, can you expand upon that? 'Cause a lot of people say, no, I'm not going to comment. But he said, sure. He said, flying an SR-71 in the far western Pacific on a night training mission in the early 70s, 72, 73. The Vietnam War was still going full blast. He said he was at 78,000 feet at Mach 2.7, which is about 1,900 miles an hour, 1,800 miles an hour. I mean, the airplane wants to fly fast, and you're in minimal afterburner at that speed and altitude. It's 3/4 moon off the port side of the airplane. He's going straight. All of a sudden, he realizes that there's something flying on the same track he is. It's metallic. It's shiny because he's getting glints off it. That's what got his attention, because it was a 3/4 moon, and it was on the starboard side or the right side of the airplane. And he's looking at it. He's at 78,000 feet. This thing is at 85,000 feet or so, 5 or 6 miles off to his right. Gets on the horn. He calls Kadena on secure voice and asks if there's another SR-71 up there. He said, no, you're up there by yourself. He said, no, I'm not. I'm going to go take a look. So in his back seat, he said, hey, Dave, we have company. He said, yeah, I know. I'm going to go take a look. So he pushes the throttles forward, give it some gas, and the airplane starts to climb. He's about a 10-degree bank heading towards whatever this object is that's flying at the same speed he is. And the SR-71, and all the Blackbirds, you go into Mach hold at whatever your Mach number is, usually 2.7 until you're ready to go over target. The airplane wants to fly fast. It can actually stay supersonic outside of afterburner. But if you want to climb, you have to give it a little bit more gas. So he pushed the throttle forward. He's banking towards this object. He said when he was still a couple thousand feet below it and a mile or two away, said this thing took off at about a 30-degree angle of attack and left him in the dust like he was heading the other direction. He figures it was going 8 to 10,000 miles an hour, and he lost sight of it. He said between 180 and 200,000 feet.
Holy cow.
And he couldn't explain it. That's 1972. The hottest thing in the world, and even today, I think, unless they have, you count stuff that Lazar was working on, it was the hottest thing in the whole wide world. So Dave tried to inquire, he got nowhere, and just forgot about it until I asked him about it. Then when he retired, he went to work for Flight Systems. And then while he was with Flight Systems, he was hired on to be the facility manager at Area 51. He was responsible for every single structure on Area 51. So he knew most of the guys there. It's a very, very small community. He was responsible for all non-program aircraft, chase aircraft, the F-104s, the F-86s, the T-33s, those types of things, T-38s. So after he was there for a while, he started asking around. He said, hey, do we have something that can fly above 200,000 feet at Mach 12, Mach 15? And everybody shook their head, no. So his only conclusion that, what left him in the dust was, in fact, a craft not made on this earth. He also inquired after, I think George Knapp asked him about Area 51, if he ever saw anything going to S4. And he said there were truckloads of stuff coming in and offloaded at Area 51. He said it was designated for a location that he remembers as S4, but he couldn't say for sure. And then he also he knows a lot of guys that still work out at the test site. No one ever refers to it Area 51. It's the test site or the ranch. Some people call it Elvis's house. But he asked a bunch of them that were there at the time that Lazar was working in S4. And he asked a bunch of guys who fly the red and whites. That's the Janet flights. They referred to them as the red and whites. And he said a couple guys he talked to said remember seeing a guy that looked like Lazar. So those pieces come together. But Fruhauf, I think, was I don't know if the Blackbird Association and their president, who I'm not fond of, he's not fond of me. And I don't know why he's not fond of me, and I don't like him because he doesn't like me. So it makes us even. But I think he may have said something to Dave.
Right.
And Dave's a good guy. I mean, and I believe, and I went and unless he told me to turn it off, because I do have a lot of his interview, but I was at his house 2 or 3 different times, and I can't. I'm not sure if I taped what he said.
Right. Well, let's learn a little bit more about it, Jim. Yeah. We're going to hop out for a break here at the bottom of the hour. Area 51's UFOs. James C. Goodall, legendary author, researcher into black projects, secret spy planes, and even more. Next on Spaced Out Radio. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine being at 85,000 feet and being joined in the air by a UFO? That would be amazing.
No.
That would be amazing.
No. And it just blows me away that the Navy is so forthright with their releases. But these were done in 2004, 2005. there's been other events since then that the military has encountered. Hell, my boss chased one in the F-94C over Lake Superior in 1955, and it left him in the dust.
Yeah.
So, and every time they turned his weapons radar on to try to lock on, the thing would lose. I mean, the electronics would just die. They turn the radar off, turn the regular radar on, and so it's fine. They turn the weapons, the queue of weapons on it, and the thing just goes, shuts down. So, to quote my friend from NSA, "Oh, they're here," and everything that Ben Rich has said. And
have you ever seen anything weird fly out of Area 51 that you couldn't identify?
No. And I have been out in Tippecanoe Valley in a moonless night. It's so dark I can't even see my feet. I'm saying, I'm standing there and said, "Okay, bastards, if you can read my mind, abduct me. Let me bring my camera, but abduct me. I want to take pictures, please." And it hasn't happened.
That's because of your swooning ways. All the alien women have said, "We can't have Jim."
Oh, yeah. I got a bridge to sell you too. I just we can't be alone. We're an insignificant solar system in an insignificant galaxy in an insignificant corner of the universe.
Right.
We're not alone. I have never thought we were alone. Even as a kid, I have always looked into the sky, and I'm hoping to see something. I mean, I really want to. I'm not going to be delusional and think I see something. Was it Sean Morton used to take people, charge them $150, fill a van with 15, 18 people, drive them from LA to the Little Alien, have dinner, then go to the campsite, which is at the base of Whitesides. And at 4:30, you see Old Faithful. It's a UFO. It sort of hovers up and down and then goes down. No, it's not a UFO. You can see it from the top of Whitesides. It's a Janet 737 coming into Area 51.
Have you ever ridden?
That was a funny.
Have you ever ridden a Janet?
No. But there are 3 Janet airplanes that have a zap from Jim Goodall in the nose wheel well and in the cockpit.
A what from you?
And graffiti. It was a stencil. It was that Goodall was here. It was like Kilroy was here during World War II. It was Jim Goodall was here, 22 April 2009. And probably why I picked 22 April. I was at CIA all day that day, so I had a really, really good alibi.
I get that.
I mean, I'll go into that. I'll go into that if you want me to. It's kind of a funny.
Oh, we can do that. Sure. We got just under 90 seconds.
Okay. I'm amazed how fast time goes.
I know.
When I'm talking.
I know. Well, if you want, if you're feeling up to it when we hit that 11:30 mark, if you want to stay for the final half hour, I'll forego the news to continue on with you. I don't mind.
It's entirely up to you.
I'm just enjoying myself. I mean, unfortunately,
I'm gonna light up a joint here pretty soon, but mellowed me out. Yeah.
Oh goodness, yes. Crack out the devil's lettuce, my friend.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm a 75-year-old pothead. But I only do it for medical. Reasons. Sure. I live with a headache. I had brain surgery 34 years ago. I wasn't supposed to survive.
Now you got the doobies to keep your head feeling good, eh?
Yeah. I only do it at night before I go to bed.
Oh, that's cool. 1 second. We're just about to come back here, my friend.
Alrighty.
Just bring enough to share for everyone. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. I want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, make sure you check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with legendary researcher James C. Goodall. You can find all his books in major bookstores. He is the premier writer of topics like the SR-71, Black Projects, stealth programs, first ever to photograph an F-117 stealth fighter. We continue with this amazing talk with this amazing legend in aviation history. Jim, welcome back.
You flatter me. You really do. It's what keeps me going. I mean, it's something. It's hard to explain something that you're so passionate about. That is nothing you can really put your hands on. I mean, everything I'm doing, I'm doing from a distance. I wouldn't sell my soul, but I would sure. Give up something to go, to be able to see what's really, really going on. It's really going on. So, where were we when we had to break? Where were we?
We were talking about the SR-71 that Lieutenant Colonel Fruhauf had seen, a UFO.
Yeah, Dave. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's. I've talked to him four or five times. I think this year. I've talked to him about once every 60 days, see how he's doing. He had battled with COVID-19 in February, and he was in pretty bad shape. And he's getting he's getting up there in age too. So. But he was, he was just absolutely blown away by the fact that the thing that outran a Blackbird in 1972, when he was at Area 51 in the early 80s, that we didn't have anything at Area 51 that could even come close to approaching the capabilities of whatever it was that he was chasing. And the thing about it, they said it had edges to it, and it wasn't a saucer. It wasn't a tic tac. It was, but he couldn't tell the shape. He never got close enough to see if he can, up at that altitude, you have all the stars out. And there would have been an outline if he could have gotten close enough to see what this thing was. But as it was, what he was getting was it was a metallic surface, and he was getting reflections off of three-quarter moon. And he just nothing like that had ever been flight tested or had anything to do with Area 51. So, and it makes sense. What Ben told me, we have things that 50 years beyond what you can comprehend. So. And I also had the letter from Ben that he wrote, sent to John Andrews in June of 1986. John had written a letter to Ben Rich and asked him, he said, Ben, do you believe in UFOs? Now, there's two categories, both man-made and extraterrestrial. And Ben came back with, we believe that both categories are possible. We refer to ours. I thought that was an interesting statement. We refer to our UFOs as unfunded opportunities. So what is he telling me? That his unfunded opportunities were maybe the same things that Bob Lazar was working on? Could be. But I'm going to continue to dig. I'm going to continue to ask questions. As more and more of these senior people retire, if you're working on an extraordinary project, I mean, something the same level as developing the Blackbirds. I mean, that was an incredible, to go 15 years from when Yeager first built the sound barrier in a rocket-powered airplane, to have something that cruises sustained for an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. You're moving through the air at 3,400 feet per second. That's 2 miles every 3 seconds, or 43 miles a minute. And just sort of put it into perspective, when on its retirement flight, when 972, which was the best flying of the remaining SR-71s, 974 was the best of all of them as far as it was the best flyer, period. They all had their own personalities. That they flew from LA to Washington, D.C. in an hour and 4 minutes. Now, this is on its retirement flight going to the Smithsonian. And then Rich told me that when they fueled up off the coast of California, their gas gauges, which wasn't unusual, their gas gauges all of a sudden just shorted out and just read 0. So they didn't know if they had a full load of fuel. So when they started their run, now the Air Force was not going to support them. Larry Welsh was the Air Force Chief of Staff, and he hated the Blackbird program.
Why?
He was turned down to fly it when he was a young major. He wasn't a good pilot. He was a good politician, because that's the only way you make 4 stars, is being a politician, besides being a military man. But he was turned down to fly the airplane, and he resented it. And when then Jerry O'Malley, who was the first blue suiter, first Air Force guy to fly the Blackbird in an operational mission, he was Air Force Chief of Staff. Welsh was his deputy. Jerry was killed in a plane crash, and so Larry Welsh stepped into his position as Air Force Chief of Staff. And he put the word out that anybody who says anything positive about the Blackbird program, I will fire you. And he said, you can say anything derogatory about it you want. The program will get no support from Air Force. He said it was too expensive. The Navy, they say all the product is used by the Navy and the alphabets: CIA, NRO, Defense Intelligence Agency, NSA. So they didn't want to support the program, but it was canceled for political reasons. It wasn't canceled, because there was something bigger and better, or it wasn't useful. A good example, just when Desert Shield was going, this started August 4th, 1990. I had to be at Beale Air Force Base helping the Hill guys take apart their Blackbird, but everything got postponed because Saddam invaded Kuwait, and I got activated. I was in the Air Guard, and I got activated to go. But they wanted to reactivate let me step back. The Blackbird program came to an end in March of 1990. The last airplane flew to the Smithsonian on March 9th, 1990. All the flyable airplanes had been dispersed by then. The non-flyers were in storage at either at Palmdale or at Air Force Plant 42, and those were primarily A-12s, or at Beale. So all the flyers left, went to their respective museums, and the 9 flyers were moved by Worldwide Aircraft Recovery. I forget where I was going. Oh, damn. I hate that.
Just in regards to the program, and you were talking about the flight going from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So I'm there helping taking apart the Hill airplane. But I still talk to Ben Rich, and Ben told me when he called me in August of '90, he said, Jim, the Blackbirds aren't going to make it through Congress. If anybody can scrounge one, you can. So I ended up scrounging in A-12. But he said he was disappointed in the record run, hour and 4 minutes from L.A. to Washington, D.C., and he said, because the gas gauges weren't working properly. Well, they had malfunctioned, which wasn't unusual. So they really took it easy on the first leg of the flight. Over around about St. Louis, the gas gauges came up. There must have been a short somewhere, a loose wire, and the gas gauges came up. And they realized they had adequate fuel to redline everything. So if anybody who's driven across country, you realize the importance of this. They went from St. Louis to Cincinnati in 8 minutes. If they could have maintained the speed from the very, very beginning on its retirement flight from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., they would have done it. It would have completed it in 47 minutes, coast to coast.
Holy cow!
And you got to remember, during its operational lifetime, those who've flown from the West Coast to Japan, I mean, that's like, what, 17 hours, 16 hours? They can fly from Area 51 to Okinawa, which is fairly close to Japan, in 5.5 hours. So we're talking about faster than a speedy bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings with a single bound. It's called the Blackbird. So the technology has not stood still. If we're capable of going coast to coast on a retirement flight of a 25-year-old spy plane, and to do it in about an hour's time. Now, from LA to Washington, D.C. is 5 hours. So they're going 5 times faster than a commercial airliner, typically. Now, point to point, you're flying over points. You're already at speed, so you have a running start. So the hour and 4 minutes is not take off to landing. It's just flying over from one point to the next. But the technology hasn't been sitting still. I mean, we have the F-35. There's people who say, well, it's a worthless airplane. The people who know what it can do said it's not really an airplane. It's a flyable, low observable information gathering node. And then again, this is the electronics that probably found its birth in the crash at Roswell in 1947. And if they're using that, they're Ben Rich, again, I keep quoting my friend, and I wish he was alive. And he had promised to give me an interview, but he died before before he'd agreed to it, but he had to get his book out first. By the time he got his book out, he was too sick to talk. But he told a gathering of graduate engineers at UCLA just right after he retired. He said, "So we have the ability to send ET home." Now think about that for a second. This is 1996, almost 25 years ago, and Ben Rich is saying we have the ability to send ET home. Now, if ET is from 50 or 100 light years away or 1,000 light years away, how is that possible unless we can fly it warp 10, or we can do what Bob Lazar said? You can go across the universe if you know the multiple navigation points that you need to get to where you're going, so you don't fly through a supernova or through a star or something. We have the ability to send ET home. And he said this in a non-classified venue at UCLA to a public gathering, for all intents and purposes, even though it was for the graduate students. It wasn't a closed session. It wasn't a classified session.
Right. Jim,
but he said the federal government. Yeah.
Did Ben Rich want to tell the story of what we really have? Because he did let a lot of big hints go.
Absolutely. He wanted to sit down with me. I think at the time, probably anybody that he trusted, and just spill the beans, because the arrangement we were working on, and I'm going to say unfortunately, he came down with esophageal cancer. That's from being in and around all that nasty chemicals used on the F-117. He says, I will, no holds barred. We'll talk about everything, but do not release it. If we do it, you can't release it until at least 10 years after I died. So I said, fine. But what he did do, and we were going to do with a sweet secondhand clock behind him, so you can see if we've done any cut and splicing. But he did give me a box of slides, and he said, "This is a program that we didn't win, but it beat the pants off the competition, and it was the Advanced Tactical Cruise Missile. It was a baby F-117. He gave me a box of slides on it and a 20-page handwritten history of it's called Senior Prom. Now that's in my new book, but since Lockheed is sponsoring it, and I had the Vice President, General Manager of the Skunk Works did the forward, and I had some other key people there at Skunk Works do an introduction. They asked me not to put the photos of stuff in there that have not been cleared. Because if they weren't cleared, they could not have the book in Lockheed or at Lockheed. So I included the story of Senior Prom, but not the photos. And maybe if it sells out, second printing, I'll include it. So, but now there's, Ben really wanted to tell the story. He really did. And his UCLA talk is public record. You can look it up. But he also said that we had the ability to take ET home, but our government will not release the information. He said we could have pollution-free energy. And then maybe with some of the Tesla stuff, who knows? But he said, his hands are tied. He said he can't talk about it. He was going to, but unfortunately, sometimes you think you're going to get the brass ring and you get the raspberry instead. So he unfortunately passed before I had a chance to interview him, but he wanted to talk, and he did make hints to other people at other locations, but he was really going to spill his beans with me. And he ran out of time.
I want to kind of switch gears here, my friend, and talk about your other good friend, Bob Lazar. Do you believe the rumors that he actually has element 115, or is that just part of the ruse and the legend of the man?
He had an example of it at his house off of West Charleston. The day or the night we went over to develop my F-117 photos. I mean, he had a mainframe supercomputer in his office. He had all sorts of diplomas and stuff like that. And that's when he told me. That's when he told me the thing that's really striking about Bob Lazar. I knew Bob before he went to work out in the desert. And I had photographed, like I had said earlier in the evening, I was the first civilian to photograph the F-117. And I called myself a civilian at the time, but I was in the Air Guard as a traditional weekender at the time. And get back to John Lear's house at about 9:15 at night. The photomats, those of you who are old enough will know what a photomat is. There's those little buildings out in the parking lot are now baristas, and they sell you coffee. But they used to drop your film off there. They would process it. By the time I got back, I have a full roll of shots of the F-117 with a T-38. And it was like being 11 years old and seeing my first naked woman. My whole body was surging. Out of 36 exposures, I only had 3 that weren't a little bit blurred because my body was shaking so much as this thing flew over me. So I'm hoping I don't have the same reaction when a UFO flies over me. But got to Lear's house and said, I got a buddy of mine just moved here from Albuquerque. He's interviewing for a job out in the desert. I think you'll enjoy him. About 9:20 or so. We hadn't been at the house more than a few minutes, and Lazar shows up. We're talking, and I tell him my dilemma. I have this roll of film. I want it processed. He said, I have to wait till the next day. And he said, hey, I got a C-41 processing unit at home and a printer. Let's go. So we jumped in his car. We're heading over to West Charleston. Lear lives near Sunrise Mountain, which is a backdrop of Nellis. And we are out but a few minutes, and he looks at me and he says, I really feel sorry for Lear. I said, what do you mean? I said, John's from this world-famous aviation family. He said, my God, his dad brought Learjet to the world, among other things. And he said, and the son of a bitch believes in UFOs. So I'm a nuclear physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, it doesn't exist. And I said, you couldn't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs are real. This is a direct statement from Robert Lazar to me in a casual environment as we're heading up to his house on the day I met him. Next time I saw him was probably a year later. He was the silhouetted, I think they called him Jarrett. He was talking about doing reverse engineering on alien spacecraft in a place called S4. And that his life was threatened. He was called to Indian Springs, which is now Creech Air Force Base outside of Las Vegas, and FBI or security people got with him, put a gun to his head, and threatened him. And that's when he decided he felt he had to go public. And that the FBI, or probably the FBI, trailed him for I think 3 years after he left Area S4, because he said, if I die in a car crash or I have a heart attack, I'm healthy, I'm a good driver, I'm not going to have an accident, I'm not going to die of unspecific causes. If I die, I was taken out by the federal government. So they protected him for about 3 years. They followed him. He was trailed everywhere. But the other thing about Lazar, if I go interview someone on a classified program, I ask them a question that I know the answer is classified, and he knows the answer is classified. He'll tell me, he'll comment. They can't neither. If you're dealing on a classified program and you're cleared for that particular program, you can neither confirm nor deny the existence of whatever the person asked you about, if it has anything pertaining to that program. George Knapp interviewed Edward Teller, the father of the H-bomb. He was the one who reportedly was the hiring guy for Bob Lazar.
And Jim, I'm going to get you to hold on there because we're going to go to break at the top of the hour. More from James Goodall. We're going to continue the Bob Lazar conversation and why he should be believed right here on Spaced Out Radio next. I'm just going to run my dogs outside, Jim. I'll be right back, okay?
All right.
Be right back.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chide and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye.
All right, Jim, we got 2.5 minutes.
This is the parent.
2.5 minutes.
All right. Sounds good. I just got a text from the Cousin Brothers. They're enjoying it.
Oh, good. I like them. They got great hair, both of them.
They have hair. Well, you have pretty good hair too. Now, are you growing it back, or are you going to keep it short?
No, I'm growing it back. I'm not going to grow it as long, but I'm growing it back.
All right.
Yeah. Works for me.
Yeah. I wish I have real fine hair. I always have. My mom called it mouse fur. And when I retired from the military, I was in grow a ponytail. It went about 12 weeks, and my hair is so fine and whatever. I was just going nuts. So I went to the barber and I said, "Give me a short haircut." He said, "You sure?" And I said, "Yeah." So
I could lend you
charge
some.
me.
I could lend you some.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you cut that for somebody, didn't you?
I did. One of our listeners who's battling cancer right now, and she is going to be having it made into a wig.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. But you had a hell of a crop of hair, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you. You know, I mean, when we were in San Francisco, you could have touched it. I would have let you.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll leave that to others.
I still have a beautiful picture of you, me, and Michael Schratt together.
Oh, good. I think the world of Michael, and Michael doesn't think that he doesn't think that he's very well thought of. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I said, bull.
That's what I say. Hold on, my friend. We're just about to come back here. Hold on.
All right.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show
Here we go, Jim.
Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Here we go as we thank everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, all of our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tractor. Tractor is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. On Twitter, follow us at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with James Goodall. He is a legend when it comes to writing about black projects, the SR-71, stealth programs, Area 51. We're lucky to have him here, and you can find all of his books in every major bookstore. Jim, welcome back.
It's my pleasure. So
we're talking Lazar. We're talking Bob Lazar.
Oh, Bob.
And why you believe that his story is correct and real.
Well, I've known him for over 30 years. And Bob's story has never changed. Even when it would have been extremely financially beneficial for him to say stuff he didn't see, well, just to embellish it, and he couldn't do it. He's one of the good guys. I mean, I think the world of Bob. I want to thank John Lear, who's still kicking, for introducing me to Bob. And I have been a proponent of Bob Lazar and a believer of Bob's background pretty much from day one, simply from the simple fact that before he went out to work out in the desert, he didn't believe in UFOs. You couldn't put a gun to his head.
Right.
Got to go back to when I was before the break. George Knapp had interviewed Edward Teller, who was the man Bob said had hired him. And when George asked him the question, apparently he refused to answer or said no comment. Now, if Bob was a fraud, Edward Teller would not want his name attached to Robert Lazar, and he would have said, I've never heard of the guy. I don't know where he got his story at, but he never has worked for me. I have never met him, and I didn't hire him to go to work out in the desert.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask you about that, though, okay? Yeah. Before we go any further, because for the last couple of years, through George Knapp and more so Jeremy Corbell, Bob has become part of the public eye once again. And the story has been reopened, rehashed through the documentary that was made about him. And, you know, one of the things that a lot of people are saying about that is, you know, Bob is signed by the To the Stars Academy for his book. You know, now it almost seems like he is trying to profit off of this entire story that I want to believe, and I'll be honest with you, I believe Bob Lazar was there. I believe he worked there. There are, you know, a plethora of people who do not believe that whatsoever. So when you look at it and you see Bob now kind of, you know, he's on Instagram now. He is trying to be a lot more public, you know, with the documentary that came out about him. You know, how do we judge the Bob Lazar that you knew comparatively to the Bob Lazar that we've seen since Corbell's documentary came out in December of 2018?
It took Bob 26 years to finally say, okay, I've gotten the short end of the stick on this. People call me a fraud, the whole bit. I haven't made, he's made $0 off of his time at S4, and he said the worst mistake he ever made, and he told me a couple of times he wished he'd have never gone public. Said this has been the biggest pain in the butt, and if he'd have known, regardless what the financial incentives are, he said if I'd have known what a pain in the butt this was going to be. And the crap that he's had to go through with these last almost 30 years, it has been 30 years. He said I would never have done it. So as the worst decision I ever made in my life. This is Bob Lazar to me talking about him going public. It has not been a fun and games for him, and. But when David Darlington did the Dreamland Chronicles, number still in the 90s, he interviewed John Andrews and I. I'm in chapter 5, The Elders. That's John and I. We've been doing this long before anybody else is doing it. And I defended Bob on that. In the book, I said, if I hadn't known him before, and if he hadn't told me to my face that you couldn't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs were real. And he was dead serious. And he felt bad about Lear believing in UFOs. And maybe I wouldn't have been as strong as a proponent of Bob Lazar as I am today. But Bob, it was almost a 30-year nightmare until Jeremy. Now, I saw the thing that Jeremy put together. There was a lot of stuff I wouldn't have put in, but he brought it out to the public, and he was able to allow Bob to profit off some notoriety of something he did, and why not? If you did something extraordinary, you're Charles Lindbergh. You flew across the Atlantic, nonstop. It's no different. Bob is allowed to have some benefit over things he's done in his life. And the most incredible thing a guy could have ever thought about doing is doing reverse engineering on alien spacecraft. Based on what Ben Rich has said, based on what the Navy has released, based on my boss in the Air Guard, Major General Wayne Gatlin. I worked for General Gatlin for 3 years on state staff. In 1954-55 time frame, they were flying F-94Cs out of Duluth Air Guard Base in Duluth, Minnesota. And the Finley Air Force Station sent an alert to the aircraft that were on, standing alert, that there was a high-speed unknown over Lake Superior. So they launched, they went after them, and you really don't back in the 50s, it was really frowned upon to fly across or anywhere through the center of Lake Superior because the lake creates its own weather. You could lose an airplane. I lost the Edmund Fitzgerald because of the storms there. But there were 3 F-94Cs at the time. That was one of the faster interceptors we had for air defense. And they're heading to being vectored there from Finley, which is right on the shore of Lake Superior, north of Split Rock. And they're heading towards. They could see it, and the weapons systems operator, the Wizzo, keys up to lock on his weapons radar, and as soon as he locks on, the weapons radar dies. I mean, it just turned off. He resets the circuit breaker, tries it again. As soon as he locks on, the thing drops offline. He did that 2 or 3 different times. And they're going in for full burnout, which you can only do for about 90 seconds. You run out of gas, and they're trying to catch up with this thing, and it's heading right towards Finley. Now, Finley had one of those geodesic domes over the radar, and this is when we had an air defense system. And the guys at Finley said, it's coming right towards us, right at a high speed, high rate of speed. And it's coming right towards it. It's gone. And General Gatlin, at the time he was a major, he's trying to see where this thing is, and he gets on the radio, and as he's approaching the shoreline, he can see that this object is directly over the Finley Air Force Station geodesic dome. I mean, it's probably a couple thousand feet above it, but that's not where the radar was looking. That's why it disappeared. And he said, General Gatlin said, well, the reason why it's not in your radar, it's hovering right above you. And the guys went out and said, look up, this thing shoots straight up, and it was visibility unlimited. And it just went straight up and disappeared in a crystal clear sky. This is 1954, 55 time frame. This is told to me by a general officer. Are UFOs real? Are they here? According to my friend from NSA, they're here. So is Bob Lazar real? I have to, and I will say it, till the day I die. I believe him 100%. That what he has said, he's said repeatedly, and without much change over the last 25, 30 years, he is who he says he is, and that's who I believe.
Okay,
and I'll put my name on it. I mean, I'll say I put my reputation on the fact that I believe, based on what I know, and I know Bob, he's the real deal.
Okay,
if he's not, he's fooled me.
Okay, so do you believe then that his education background at MIT and at, I believe, University of California were scrubbed?
If the federal government wants to make you a non-person, they can make you a non-person. Bob Lazar's Social Security card number, according to the federal government, had never been issued. When I was activated for Desert Shield and Desert Storm, I was in the Pentagon. I was at Guard Bureau, but I was in the Pentagon. And I had Bob Lazar's W-2 from when he worked at S4. I blocked out his Social Security number just in case I dropped it or whatever. And I wanted to see where this office was. It was the Department of Naval something, and I looked up the closest thing possible on it in the Pentagon, and it wasn't Naval Investigative Services, but it was along those lines. But I went into Naval Investigative Services, and there was a young lieutenant, not lieutenant, Lieutenant JG, I think it was, behind the desk as I went in there, and I'm in uniform. I'm a tech sergeant. At the time, I'm an E6. And I handed him Bob's W-2, and I said, "Sir, can you tell me where this operation is, where this place is located?" And he looks at it and he says, "Excuse me a minute." And he walks into the 2-star's office. Now, a Navy admiral, a Navy 2-star admiral, is not going to talk to an Air Force enlisted puke, and that's exactly how they look at me. an Air Force enlisted puke, just on a whim, off of the fact that I just walked into his office with a W-2 from some guy who may or may not be real. And I said, Lieutenant JG comes out and he says, the Admiral will see you. And I thought, wow, I'm going to go see a 2-star. I mean, I worked for 2 stars, but I was never been asked to talk to one. So I go in there, I give him a sharp salute, and he says, Sergeant, parade rest. Not at ease, parade rest. So I'm standing there in parade rest, and he's holding Bob Lazar's W-2 in his hand. And he said, Sergeant, I don't know where you got this, but if I ever see your face cross the threshold of my office ever again, you'll be the most sorry son of a bitch in the United States Air Force. Do you understand me, Sergeant? I said, yes, sir. And with that, he put it in the shredder and said, you're dismissed. I gave him a sharp salute. I did an about-face and walked out of his office. Now, if Bob Lazar was a fraud, Lieutenant JG would have not recognized the location that I was looking for as a classified location. And the 2-star would have not had he was having a meltdown. He was not happy. And I deal almost, as my duty as the wing or state staff historian, I dealt almost exclusively with the 06 colonels and brigadier and major generals in the Guard and active duty. Those are the people I dealt with. So this was an unusual event, and it was one more thing that told me that Bob is real. Bob is real. If he wasn't, they would not have had that 2-star general, not admiral, would have not had. I mean, he was pissed. He was upset. And it was. I must have hit all his buttons, because he was he wasn't a happy camper. And he was going to make sure if he ever saw my face again, I wasn't going to be a happy camper. And I don't think that would have happened if the location and Bob Lazar was non-existent, was made up. This is 1990. This is 1990. It's a couple of years after, about a year after Bob had gone public. I know there's just too many things saying that, Bob's story makes sense. Bob's story checks out in a lot of areas. He told George Knapp when he was doing background work on Lazar that he was written up in the Albuquerque newspaper because he had a jet-powered dragster with a Lamborghini Countach body, and I saw it in his driveway there in Vegas. So George, went to Albuquerque. He looked up the time frame that Bob said he was written up on. He was on microfiche, and there's a picture of Bob with his jet car, Sandia professor, an engineer. Bob, Robert, I think J. Lazar, I'm not sure what his middle name is, likes to do fun things on weekend. He goes 300 miles an hour for fun, and there was his jet car. So he was written up in the Albuquerque newspaper saying that he was a engineer. He was not a professor, but he was an engineer at Sandia, just like he said he did. And even after he left S4 and he had the weight of the federal government coming down on him, making him a non-entity, he could not have had his job at Caltech, which has been verified, without at least a master's degree in physics. And he had the job. He was there for a year or 2 years. He's a brilliant guy. There's no question that he is. His intelligence level is way the hell up there.
Right.
Probably 170, 180 IQ. I mean, he's a sharp guy. And
here, Jim, we got about 4 minutes before we got to go to our final break of the night here, and I think we're gonna continue this chat right after, and you're gonna stick with us. But here's what I don't understand, okay? And maybe I got this all wrong, and maybe you can correct something for me. But after Lazar came out, there was death threats. He was allegedly shot at. His car was broken into. His home was broken into. A lot of bad things were happening to him. And then all of a sudden, he seems to team up with Robert Bigelow. And yet, as soon as that happened, all of the death threats seemed to stop. Is there coincidence there?
I would have to say, yeah. I mean, there's linkage for sure. I mean, there's no way that it would magically stop for no reason. It stopped for a reason. When Bigelow would, I've been trying. George Knapp was supposed to give me Bob Bigelow's. I think his first name is Bob. His email. But he's been just too busy with UFO stuff to get back to me. But there had to be a reason. Either they decided, oh, hey, if we keep hounding this guy and trying to discredit him, that just adds fuel to the fire. So maybe it's better that he's just lined himself up with Bigelow. Maybe we just better if we back off and just pretend like he went away. Maybe he will, and that may be some of the reasoning why he, after he lined up with Bigelow, that the threats and stuff ceased, or they felt he was out of the program long enough that it didn't make any difference. So I believe him. And it's like I say, if he's fooled me, then he's done a hell of a good job, because I operate a lot on my gut, and I have a good sized gut, so it gives me a lot of influence. And when people feed me a line of baloney, I have a pretty good BS filter, and I didn't feel that with Bob at all at any time. So he's who he says he is. I'll stand behind. I'll stand behind Bob until there's a reason for me not to. But I've looked for reasons to see if what Bob has said, is it real? Is it not? Is he full of baloney? Is he pulling our chain? I've been around a lot of con artists. I mean, and I think I would have seen through his bull. I mean, he's not an intense guy. He's focused and he's smart, but you don't get the feeling that he's full of baloney. He's who he says he is, and I'll stick with that. And I think he came out for the very first time to the general public after being more or less staying away for 25 plus years. And that's when I went up and met with him up in Phoenix in 2015 at their Disclosure Con.
Right.
And I think that was the first time. It was the first time he was going to be a speaker. And I was at his chalet with I spent about 12 hours with him and his entourage, and it was fun. And Bob, I can say that Bob's a friend of mine. And
good. I gotta end it right there, Jim. Jim's gonna stick with us till the top of the hour. Skipping the news, we got a real cool conversation with James Goodall happening. We're gonna continue it right after the break here on Spaced Out Radio. I believe him too. You know, I really do. And you knowing him personally, you know, I totally believe with what you're saying. I mean, you have no reason. Oh, excuse me. You have no reason to BS anything that is going on.
No, I mean, and if I didn't think he was real, if I didn't think he was who he said he was, I would have never mentioned to anybody that I was a friend of Bob Lazar. If I thought he was a Sean Morton, now Sean is a UFO guy that is now
in jail,
spending time in prison in Texas. Yeah, right now. He was here in Arizona for a while, and Lauren Felton was really close to him. And I said, well, if he's in Arizona, ask him if he'd like a visitor. Because the first time I met Sean, I was with John Andrews with the Little Alien, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and John and I are staying in one of the trailers there at the Little Alien, and this guy comes in with his whole entourage, and he's talking about UFOs and stuff, and John and I have our backs to these guys, to Sean and this group. It's about 10 or 15 people, and he talks about his good friend Jim Goodall. Jim Goodall this and Jim Goodall that. Because apparently I was back in the early 90s, I was very, very visible. And so John Andrews and I are laughing, and John asked me, he said, "You ever met Sean?" I said, "Never. I've seen pictures of him. That's the only reason I know what he looks like." So he's talking away, and I went over there and said, "Hi, this is Sean." I said, "You know me?" He said, "No." I said, "I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Jim Goodall." If he hadn't been using my name in vain, I probably wouldn't have done that. But boy, you talk about so I didn't recognize you. And I didn't embarrass him anymore. I said, and I try to help him cover up a little bit and tell him that's all right. We all forget. So he was a little bit embarrassed, but I was going to go visit him here, and then Lauren actually called his girlfriend or his wife or whomever to see where to arrange me going to give him a visit, and Lauren gets back and sends me an email, said he's been moved to a place in Texas, so I don't know where in Texas he's at. If I ever get a chance to go to Texas, I'll track him down. I mean, I'm nothing against the guy. He's just, he made a lot of good money for a period of time until I got the best of him. And I'm not sure exactly how he got in trouble, but he got in some deep shit trouble. I think they charged him with embezzlement or something. And he thought the money that was sent his way was a gift from heaven. So, but apparently it wasn't. So, but he's a good guy. I mean, I feel bad anybody who's going to get screwed by the federal government and go spend time in prison. I don't think I'd do well in prison, but and I don't know how long he's in. Lauren never told me, so. Oh, by the way, the Hurricane Laura has made landfall.
Yeah, I saw.
Top speed 158 miles an hour. So
brutal. Let's just hope that. Let's just hope and pray it's not as bad as the last time.
Storm surge is 20 to 25 feet.
Yeah, that's going inward.
Yeah.
It's unsurvivable storm surge. Reading it on Twitter right now. It was 7 miles per hour short of a Category 5. 500,000 residents were told to evacuate, and now there's tornado watches issued in parts of the states. Holy fuck.
Yeah, but that's what they live with. They know. I mean, there's people, I don't care how many times they get wiped out, there's no way in hell they're going to leave.
Exactly.
And you got to give them credit for having the spotted, to do that. So,
all right, my friend, hold on here.
They're nuts.
We're gonna get going here.
And become a donor today.
Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate you taking the time. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, normally we go to the news. However, we're having such a very, very good time talking with James Goodall tonight that I wanted to continue it because I love talking to this guy. He's legendary in this field.
Oh, good.
Oh, God. He hates it when I say that, but I can feel him rolling his eyes right now. He is legendary, underlined, and in capital letters and italics in this field. You can find all of his books in any major bookstore. Jim, welcome back.
It's my pleasure. I'm having a good time.
Good.
Having a good time.
Us too. All right. I got a question from, where is it here? From Steam Train Mark all the way down in Australia. And he is asking. I
love Australia.
Well, it is tomorrow there. And so they do predict the future since they live in the future. We are, Jim, apparently, just to confirm, you and I are alive tomorrow. We are alive tomorrow.
This is true.
Perfect. All right.
This is true.
Mark is asking, Jim, how come you were not a part of the Bob Lazar documentary that Jeremy Corbell did? Were you asked?
He interviewed me in Santa Monica. Was it 5 years ago? 4 years ago? As Jeremy did. And we sat down and he recorded 3.5, 4 hours of talking about Bob Lazar, Area 51, Lear, and everything else. And there's a couple times he said, he wanted me to be part of it, but we never connected. And that's all right. I mean, I gave him a lot of information. I gave him a lot of supporting information about Lazar and whatever, and he chose not to use me. Now I've been on over 50. I've been a talking head on over 50 TV programs, and the most recent one was done in September on was it Unsolved Mysteries, or I think that was it. But so my name has been out there a lot. It didn't work out. We didn't connect, but I was there if he needed me. They didn't need me, so they didn't use me. So, but I've sat down with George Knapp, I think 6 or 7 times, starting in 89 and multiple times through there. And I look back at some of the stuff, and I had dark hair back then, and this kind of surprised me because it seems like I've always had pure white hair. So no, he didn't use me, and as they say, stuff happens, and sometimes the things don't get lined up, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. So, but the one thing I did mention to Jeremy, and I told him, I said, and I was at the Storm Area 51 base camp. George Harris has that right outside of Ash Springs on the road to Rachel. And I was there with CBS, and I was there with George Knapp. And then, of course, everything, they'd been saying for 3 weeks that everything was canceled. And there was more security people there than there were people who were going to storm Area 51. But early on, when there was, 3 to 5 million people say, oh, we're going to be there, which is more than the population of the state of Nevada. And someone wrote, well, how are they going to stop us if we decide to storm Area 51? I said, all you got to do is shoot the first guy up front. Unless you have a death wish, you're going to turn around and hightail back. But it was. I told Jeremy. I said, I have a potty mouth. I swear too much. But he went out of his way to swear. I said, there really is no need for that. I'm not a prude, but really, there's no need for it. And that was my only negative comment about Jeremy and again, I saw a part. I think I saw most of the Lazar thing, but there was a lot of hype. I had the honor to be part of the Cousin Brothers are putting together a package, and I had a chance to see it this week, and I was very, very pleased with it. And I had a laugh. I was with Doc Skinner. This is about a month ago. I was up at Pine Top, and he's talking. I'm not sure if he's talking to Brett or Blake on speaker, and I'm standing right next to him. And I one of the Cousin Brothers said, there's a guy out there that supposedly knows Bob really well. I wish we could track him down. His name's Jim Goodall. And both Doc and I started laughing, and Doc said, he's standing right next to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So then, and then I think as Brett said, well, can you get hold of the Lazar and get a response? I said, sure. So I got on my phone. I called his wife. It's just easier to go through her. She was very happy to hear from me, and said, "You going to come up and visit us this fall?" And I said, "That was my intent, but of course COVID may screw that up. Is Bob available?" He said, "Yeah, he's in the lab. I'll go get him." So I have it on speaker, and Doc is listening, and of course Bob has a very distinctive voice, and he gets on, and we start talking. I said, "Well, how does it feel to be finally vindicated?" This is right after they announced that we were in possession of craft not made on this earth, whatever the official statement was. And he says he got really excited when he first heard it, and he said, "But it was too good to be true. When something is too good to be true, it probably isn't." And he said, even though it was in the New York Times and it was on Fox News, he said, until they actually show a craft or have a high resolution photo or video of a flying saucer or a UAP or whatever you want to call it, he said, I'm just gonna hold back. And he said, I won't comment. I don't really have a response. We'll just give it a couple of weeks and see what happens. So, man, Doc is right there. He was just kind of flabbergasted. I could just get on a telephone and call Bob. But again, I'm not an outsider to him. I know where he lives. I have his email. I have his cell number. I have his wife's cell number. And I've been invited to come up and spend a day or two at his place. And I may try to do it sometime in October. So, but my Bob is who he is, and I am. If he made some money off this, hooray for him, because he really put the screws to him for the last 30 years. So it's about time that he had something positive coming his way on something he experienced. I mean, I've experienced stuff that. Why was it me? Why was it me that got chosen to go to Edwards Air Force Base in 1964 to support some programs? I was a kid who wasn't even really shaving yet. I was a 18-year-old kid, soon to be 19, going to Edwards to support 3 big programs. I mean, I was a very small part of it, and it had to do with ground-based telemetry. But that was my destiny, and I believe in destiny. Things happen. People come into your life because they're supposed to. People go out of your life because they're supposed to. Maybe that's why I've had so many ex-wives. But Bob was supposed to be in my life. John Lear was supposed to be in my life. Dave Scott was supposed to be in my life, and I'm a better person for it. I'm a much better person for it, and I can say I've had the time of my life. I'm 75 years old. I have a beautiful house in a very hot part of the world. And my everyday car is a Grand Sport Corvette. I just got off a 3,500-mile road trip where I went and saw UFO people. I went and saw Doc. I went and saw Stu Brown from Pop Sci and Bill Scott from Aviation Week, and then went to the Air Force Museum and the UFO Garage guys out at Taylor, Texas. And it's just, I am blessed. I am truly blessed. I am very, very healthy. I can't hear for squat, but I'm not dead. And I say that because I had a brain tumor taken out the day Challenger blew up, and I was under for 11 hours of surgery, and I wasn't supposed to survive. So I have a real positive attitude, and I'm having a great time. And I hope everybody out there, when you see something that really grabs you, and even more so when the government, whether it's Canadian government or British government or the U.S. government, when they say this is classified, you can't know. Well, damn it, I'm going to do everything I can to know. Again, if the Air Force would have told me and responded in 1968 with my request, if they would have given me the 10 photos I asked for, I was looking for blackbirds in the air, and I gave them tail numbers. I was aware of the A-12, but it was still operational at the time. I made the request, so they were still very, very top secret. If they would have given me what I requested in 1968, I would have been satisfied. I would not have ended up being one of the world's foremost experts from a historical point of view on the history and development operations of the Lockheed Blackbirds. I would have not written and found out all sorts of stuff and made the front page of the Wall Street Journal on the book I did with my very first book I did with Bill Sweetman on the F-117. I had Roy Harris, I think it was Roy Harris from Wall Street Journal, tracked Bill Sweetman and I down. Now, I lived in the Minneapolis side of the Mississippi River. Bill lived in the St. Paul side. And Wall Street Journal had to come from L.A. to Minnesota in December and interview Bill and I, and we made the front page of the Wall Street Journal. I've done it 3 times. I made the front page of the Wall Street Journal 3 times. And it all had to do with my love of black airplanes. And it's a passion, and if you have a passion, those of you out there, you, Dave, anybody else, I mean, if your heart is telling you you're gonna find out everything you can. I mean, like Michael Schratt. Michael has found stuff and dug stuff up that he's the only person who could have done it. And maybe when it comes to the Blackbird and some stuff in Area 51, I was the only one with the fortitude to go after it. But if you're going after something, whether it be UFOs, whether it be spooky airplanes, or whether it be the latest creations to come out of General Motors or Ferrari or whomever, then go for it. Give it your all. Don't do anything half-assed. Don't say, well, it's good enough. There's no such thing as good enough. If you're going to waste your time or take your time to go, to follow your heart wherever it may be, wherever it takes you, you have to go in. You have to go in with both feet. You can't do it half-assed. You can't. Well, this is good enough. No, if you want to make a statement, if you want to prove a point, if you want to show the world that, that I was able to dig this out when the Fed said, no, you're not going to know. That's what you do. Now, as sort of a change in direction, you were talking about Dulce a little bit ago. My friend Stuart Brown, who lives in Albuquerque, his best friend is the senior law enforcement officer for the Dulce Pueblo. It's an Indian pueblo, and it's Indian land, and there's a vantage point on Indian land that the security people at Dulce cannot come and get us. We have a vantage point looking over the Dulce facility. And if this COVID crap will ever get over, and when the world will ever go back to normal, Stuart and I are going to spend 2 or 3 days out there, and his buddy will put us up. He will take us in his official Dulce Pueblo vehicle with the law enforcement star on it and red lights and whatever. And we're going to go up in some trails, and we're going to overlook the facility and see what we can see. And we're willing to spend 2 or 3 days there, and maybe longer. And the other place is was it 2015, just outside of Greenwood, New Mexico. Something crashed in a wilderness area. It hit the ground at 3,000 miles an hour. And they went and retrieved it, and they had a notice to airmen that area was a temporary flight restriction. You could not go within 30 miles of the center of this no-fly zone. And I talked to the fire chief from Greenwood about 3 weeks after the event, or 4 weeks after the event. Said, yeah, there were flatbed tractor and trailer. There were earth moving equipment. There were 3 or 4 white vans filled with guys. So we've been looking for the crash site, and if there's been a lot of bad weather up in that part of New Mexico. But hopefully Steve Douglas, Stu Brown, and maybe a few others, we're going to go and see if we can find the crash site, because you can't drive a 18-wheeler into an area, and they're all switchbacks and whatever, without creating a new road. And if they had to excavate a road to where the crash site is, it's going to be visible even 10 years after the fact. It'll be scarred. So we're going to go looking for it. And Steve has he's a news director at a television station in Amarillo now. And when he was still a news guy, they sent him to a 2 or 3 week class on operating very expensive high-tech drones. And he's going to be buying one. And we're going to do a survey of the area from the air with drones and see if we can find the exact location and drive to it. If the semis can make it to it, we can make it to it. Now, Stuart and I did go down one of the roads. We're back 21 miles or 22 miles, and there was no way that a tractor and trailer could have made some of those turns. So we knew it wasn't down that particular road. So we'll just have to wait. But again, if you have a passion, whether it be UFOs or regardless of what it is, you have to put your heart into it and go in with both feet. Don't do anything halfway. And that's what I've done. Now, I've pissed off people. I've stepped on people's fingers. I have been declared a pain in the butt by some people. I mean, I even got a nickname from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General John Vesey. He was my boss, General Grumman, was at a generals conference in D.C., and all the generals from the Air Guard, Air Force Reserve, and active duty were together. And it was a 5-day function. And General Grumman said, I became the subject of conversation for 43 minutes. And he timed it on his watch. And he said at the end of the function, General Vesey came up to him, because General Vesey is from Minnesota. And he said General Grumman, he said, those of us in Joint Chiefs, we enjoy your Sergeant Goodall. We refer to him as Agent Orange. So he gave me a nickname, Agent Orange. He said there's some younger officers who would like to have him whacked, but he does a good job, and we enjoy what he does, and we enjoy his passion. So I'm fairly well known for what I do. I don't break the law. I have, but I've been really lucky. And the only time I really broke the law is when I walked in about 2 or 3 miles and was so nervous I had to walk. I had to get back out. I was having an anxiety attack.
I don't blame you.
But
I don't blame you.
Yeah,
Jim, we only got about a minute left, man. We only got about a minute left. What's up next for you?
What's up next? I sent my Blackbird book to Elon Musk. He fell in love with it. He saw it. It sits on his desk at SpaceX. And he's invited me and some friends to go for a tour of their rocket facility. So I've been invited Joel Payne to go with me. And I think Gene Roddenberry's son or grandson is going to go if he's available. So but I have to wait for California to be less locked up.
True. But
it's an open invitation, so I'm going to have a chance. And I had to laugh at Joel. He said that was one of his. That's on his wish list. That's on his his bucket list. I said, what is the other thing on your bucket list you don't think you'll ever do? I said, we'll fly the B-2 simulator. And I said, got you beat? I have.
Oh, goodness. James Goodall, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio, man. I really do appreciate you.
It was a kick in the butt.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed every minute, and it went so fast. I can't believe it's been 3 hours.
I know. It's just amazing. All your books can be found at every major bookstore. James C. Goodall, you hold on, because we're going to start getting ready to take this show out. What a great show. We'll get to the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave tomorrow. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone participating in our chat rooms tonight on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club at our website, and all the snarkers and snarkettes hanging out on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. All of you were fantastic tonight.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yeah, we got room for them too. Good night. That was awesome, Jim.
That was fun.
Hold on, my YouTube crowd's going to give you a little bit of a clap here for a good show. Good job, Jim.
Thank you.
Right there. Good manly clapping right there, my friend. Good manly clapping.
Yeah. Do you get positive responses?
Oh, everybody's loving you. Everybody's loving you.
That cracks me up. It really does. I don't deserve it, but I'll accept it.
Oh, you stop being so fucking humble. We can swear now. Stop being so humble, man. Take the compliments for what it is, and people love you for a reason, and that's because you're amazing at what you do, man. Amazing at what you do.
I enjoy what I do, and that's probably as important as anything. Excuse me. I had to take a good hit.
Oh, no problem.
I get the cough that goes with it. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. No, I just anytime you need to fill some space, and if you think I can help you fill it or whatever, I'd be more than happy.
Well, I appreciate that. We're still live on YouTube. The crowd there can hear you.
They can.
Cat Chaser wants to know about your Corvette.
I have a 2010 Grand Sport Corvette. It's black. It has a light gray and a dark gray interior. Every time I look at it, I smile. I rode a Harley for most of my adult life. And I laid it down coming back from Sturgis in 2013. I was doing 70 miles an hour in West Texas and hit standing water and left the bike.
Oh, goodness.
And as I was getting ready to leave, and I don't remember leaving it, but just before I left the bike, my only thought was, shit, I didn't want to go this way. And the next millisecond, I can remember. A lot of times you're going to do something really terrible. Your mind says, forget it. I'm not going to let you remember this shit. So I'm on my back, hydroplaning right along with my motorcycle. I had a 2005 Road King Classic with a Screaming Eagle motor, and I'd been at Sturgis. I'd been on the road for 2 weeks. And I remember I'm laying on my back, my arms crossed, and my feet straight out, and I'm zipping along the road. Everybody stopped because I was blocking both westbound lanes. I was 4 miles outside of Friona, Texas, on US 6070, and it splits there at Clovis. And then when I finally stopped, they said I had skidded or whatever about a quarter of a mile because I was hydroplaning most of the way. And I know I rolled over, but as I'm laying there, I said, "Oh my God! I hope my feet are where they're supposed to be." That's one thing they get torn apart and tangled and everything else. And I looked down, and they were right where they're supposed to be. And I wiggled my toes and everything, and I lost a little bit of skin on my left arm. That was it. And as I'm laying there, and I realize that I'm okay, my next thought was, oh, God, I hope there isn't an 18-wheeler with 80,000 pounds of hogs right in my butt because I'm dead. So I just stand up. Of course, everybody had stopped. There was about 7 or 8 cars had stopped. 3 cars behind me in the same area that I crashed had crashed, and they were severe injuries. And a eastbound semi with an empty 50-foot flatbed trailer, his trailer ended up upside down in the center median. So there was a lot of water on the road. But I just got up and walked to the shoulder. Everybody just gasped. And then the load on the back of my Harley did not shift. I'm a really good load master. So we picked the bike up. And the thing weighs 1,000 pounds. And we brought it to the shoulder. And so my next thought was, well, let's start. So we put the windscreen on. Everything on the right-hand side was ground down completely. My peg was gone, my foot peg. The saddlebag on the right side was all torn up. Everything on the right side was torn up, but nothing was broken, nothing was bent. So we pulled to the side, and I said, okay, this is a $64,000 question. Will it start? First crank, started right up. So then the ambulance came, and the paramedics were saying, well, Mr. Goodall, how fast were you going? I said, 70. I said, how old are you? And this is 2013. I was 68. And he said, you should really be out in the middle of the road with a sheet over you. I said, yeah, I know. But I think God looked down and said, yeah, I'm going to really screw with you today, but I'm not going to kill you. And I walked away from it. And I rode 700 miles home. on my Harley, and I said it was a little bit awkward only having one foot peg, but the bike ran flawlessly all the way home. But I lost the edge, and I was never the same on the bike. I've been riding motorcycles since I was 12 years old. It's a long time, and it wasn't the thing to do. So I rode it for about a year, and then I parked it, and I decided I was going to give it to my best friend, which I did. He can't afford it, and he lives in Section 8 housing, but initially he was going to buy it, and I told him, RB, I'm not going to sell it to you. And he got all depressed. I said, I'm going to rent it to you. I'm going to lease it to you for $1. So that's what I did. And I paid the insurance. I have the title, but he maintains the bike, and it's his bike until he doesn't want to ride it anymore. And then I'll give it to my son. But I told my wife, I said, I'm not going to ride the Corvette, the Harley anymore. If I can find some way to make enough money, because I'm retired, to make some extra money to buy a car, I want to get a Corvette. So out of the blue, I get a call from my old boss from Hawaii, because I was the curator at the Pacific Aviation Museum at Pearl Harbor for 4 years. And he had a project for me, and it was to build an exhibit for their 10th anniversary. And myself and my exhibit builder, Mac McKellar, and I flew out, spent 6 weeks in Hawaii. They put us up. We worked 7 days a week, all the way through Thanksgiving, all the way up to December 2nd, when the exhibit had to be installed in Hangar 79. And that, what they paid for my 2010 Grand Sport Corvette. And I was meant to have that car. And I've had it 4 years now, put on 40,000 miles. I've had it up to 140. It'll do 185. I don't have the balls to go quite that fast, but I may when I go out in the desert. I'm going to be heading out towards Area 51 sometime in October with a friend of mine. Who's never been out in the area, so I'm just going to give him some pointers. Go to Little Alien, go out to the end of the road at Area 51, and I don't know if they have the gates there or not, but I'll go up to the fence line, so they can see how close we are, and show my white sides and the campsite, and then I'll take them down to the 10-mile road near Rachel, and that's anything that takes off from Area 51 has to fly over that area, and then have some meet at Rachel, and then go up to Warm Springs over to Tonopah Test Range, and go down to the fence line there, and then continue and go around the down 95 back to Vegas and make a day of it. So that's what I'm up to.
Jim?
So yes, I have a Corvette. It's black and it's fun, and I get 24 miles to the gallon, averaging 65 miles an hour for 3,000 miles.
Nice. Jim, what do you think's
and if it breaks,
what do you think's hiding at Area 51 now? Anything because the base is overhyped?
No. Well, first of all, I'm surprised that some private pilot was able to fly in the south end of Area 51 and got some incredible photos. There's too much large infrastructure that has been built in the last 10 years. I mean, it's the amount of building that's gone in there is immense. They built a new runway. They have the new large hangar. It's a taxi-through hangar. It's big. So you have to, whatever's flying out of there has really a good size wingspan. They had the Scoot and Hides. They've refurbished and built new housing. Everything at Area 51 based on the most recent Google Earth or any other, if there's other means to look at the base. It's expanded immensely from the 1990s. The last 20 years, there's been a huge buildup at Area 51. Area 51 is, when they took away Whitesides and they took away Freedom Ridge, it became a even more secure area. And one of the things they were talking about doing, there was the deputy director for program security for special projects. That's all the spooky stuff that the Air Force deals with. The deputy director's name was Pete Ames. We had to go around during Desert Storm, but that's another story. But he told me in a conversation I had near in the late 90s, they were trying to figure a way to desensitize or take the emphasis off of Area 51. And one of the considerations that they were going to bring in, they were going to fly in a 20 or 30 journalists, and my name would be on the list to fly into Area 51 with cameras, to be given a tour of the facility, to actually see some programs that have come and gone that are still, that they haven't disposed of the airframes and they're in storage there. Possibly take some people up in a helicopter to get good close-up, high-resolution images of the base. And he said, and it had been discussed that this was one of the things they were considering doing, because once they allowed the press in there, it took away the mystique of being, spooky and UFO-y and whatever. And it would just become, oh yeah, that place out in the desert, no big thing. We've been there. We've seen pictures of it. The press was there. Nothing to report. And that's what they were considering doing. And hopefully I'll live long enough to see that happen.
You've never had, but you've never had a UFO or an alien encounter personally, have you?
No, I haven't. And I've been in, I said earlier before we went on the air, I've been out in Tippecanoe Valley, which is just due east of Area 51. And I've been, right near the black mailbox everybody's familiar with. It's now painted white. And I think they've moved it a couple times. But I sat there and I said, okay, if you can read my mind. Now there's no moon. The sliver moon had just gone behind the horizon. And I'm standing there. It's so dark I can't even see my feet. And I'm thinking, okay, if you can read my mind, abduct me. Bring something down. Bring me to the mothership or whatever, but abduct me. But let me bring my camera. And I mean, I have wanted to see something out there, but I have not seen anything I couldn't explain. And when I was in Desert Storm, my job as historian for Guard Bureau, I had to read every single message to and from CENTCOM. So anything that General Schwarzkopf saw, I saw. Plus, I was my clearance and my special access required me to be able to read even eyes only. And then there was only one, and it had to do some diplomatic stuff, and it didn't have anything to Guard Bureau, so I didn't read the whole thing. But probably the spookiest message that I read. Well, first of all, I was looking for designations of airplanes, because every single airplane and every single call sign for the day was published, and I read that list every single day. And I was looking for a TR-3. I was looking for a Bob Lazar special. I was looking for something out of the ordinary, and much to my disappointment, I found nothing. I mean, U-2 stuff, F-117 stuff and stuff, but nothing. But the thing that probably and I get goosebumps when I think about it. There was a message from Margaret Thatcher while she was still Prime Minister, and it was to Saddam Hussein. And it said, to Saddam Hussein, President of the Islamic Republic of Iraq, or whatever the formal name was, from Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I may have said, I think it said Great Britain or United Kingdom or whatever, but it was the proper title for her being Prime Minister. And it said, if for any reason you use chemical, biological, or nuclear agents on the coalition forces or your own people, period, and she spelled out period, the United Kingdom will retaliate with a full-fledged nuclear strike on Baghdad and its major cities within 24 hours. Signed, Margaret Thatcher, Prime Minister, full concurrence of Parliament. And that's probably why, if he had, and they found remnants of all his nerve agents and stuff like that, and that's why he didn't use them. Because Maggie Thatcher said that if he did, she was going to incinerate Iraq. So he didn't. And I wanted to make a copy of that telegram, because it was to the President of the United States, all members of Congress, members of Joint Chiefs, so on and so. I mean, there was a whole litany of stuff, but it was limited in circulation to only members of the coalition senior members of coalition forces and people who had who were cleared to see the message, and I was one of those people. But I didn't want to copy it because I had the Xerox machine there in the vault where I was reading all this stuff and I was pulling stuff for Guard Bureau, but I couldn't do it. It was a restricted access message, but it gives me the chills thinking about it today. So I ramble a lot, by the way. So
that's all right. My audience is my audience is loving it, man. You can continue on. They are loving it.
Oh, good. Well, anybody else has another question I may be able to answer? I answered my Corvette question, and my wife asked me, "How long are you going to keep the How long are you going to keep the Corvette?" I said, "Until I can't get out of it anymore."
Of course,
because your butt's only about 8 inches off the ground, and if I hit you in a crosswalk, I would hit just above your ankles. That's how low the car is. And I can't go to a car wash. I can't go my front end alignment because the front end is so low. So, but I love it. I absolutely love it. It is like I say, I drove from here to Pine Top to Albuquerque to Minneapolis to Dayton to Austin to San Antonio. Well, I was in Dallas to San Antonio, then drove home last Saturday. And I got 24 miles to the gallon, doing 80 to 90 miles an hour most of the way. And if it breaks, it's a Chevy. I got a buddy of mine about the same time I got my Corvette, his wife bought him a 428 Ferrari, like Magnum PI. And I asked Jay, I said, "How often you drive it?" "Well, maybe once every 6 weeks or so." I said, "Why don't you drive it all the time?" I said, "Well, it's in the shop a lot." Mine's a Chevy. I can get it fixed. I can be in Keokuk, Iowa. I can be in Abbotsford, British Columbia, and I could get it fixed.
I hear you.
His Ferrari, he can't. So it's I love it, and it's comfortable. I have a heads-up display. It'll do 185 miles an hour, and if I don't see any cows when I head off to Rachel, I go down 375. As you come down Hancock Summit, you can see for 27 miles to the next summit, but it's open range. But it's great 2-lane road, and there's no place for a cop to hide. And I just may see if I can get above 140. I know it'll do it. I don't know if I have the cojones to do it. So,
well, we had a friend of mine had just a couple weeks ago was playing around with a 2016 Corvette Z06. And we took it out on the highway and we hit 262 kilometers an hour. So I believe that is 170 miles an hour. Convert.
Well, I think the
kilometers to miles.
I think the Z06 can do almost 200. We had the Corvette Club I was part of. one of the members is a very prominent attorney, and he buys a new. He had a brand new 2018 Z06 with a Z07 option, and he said it's 3:00 in the morning. He just left Yuma, and between Yuma and Gila Bend on Interstate 8, there's nothing. Nothing. I mean, you could see the edge of the world. I mean, the end of the world drops off just about 10 miles off the edge. So he said he's cruising at 150, and he says, well, I wonder if this thing will do 200. And so he floors it, and he had it downshift into fifth gear because he was below the torque curve. And he said he got up to about 202, 203. He kept it there for about 10 minutes and said, nah, I'll drop down to back to 150. I've been on that same road doing about 100, and I hit a rabbit. And vaporized when I hit it, but it cost $2,700 for the damage to the front of my car. The whole front clip had to be replaced. 3:00 in the morning for me. Also, I'm in a dead area. There's no internet. I mean, there's no cell phone coverage, and Interstate 8 is one of the most least used interstates in the country. And it goes between San Diego and Casa Grande there in south of Phoenix. But you can go fast. Just don't run into anything like a cow. That would really ruin your day. So, what else you got?
There's a question coming from Chris. What do you think is next for disclosure? And as you're answering that, I'm going to just quickly run outside. I'll be right back. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way they've been talking, I'm talking about the brief thing that they had here about 4 weeks ago, that we have objects not of this earth. With the release of the Tic Tac videos and the Navy acknowledging the fact that they're not ours. The Russians don't have the ability. The Chinese don't have the ability that we know of. I think the next disclosure, I think they've been building up to it, is going to be a high resolution video of alien craft flying, taking off, or maybe even landing at the helicopter pad at the White House during a news conference. That's the only way the world's going to believe they're real. So that's what I think is going to be the next thing. Now the B-21, which is a replacement for the B-2, the B-1, the B-52 is going to be flying for 100 years. That will probably be made semi-public within the year, because they're supposed to fly in 2021. So it's believed that there's a technology demonstrator already flying out of Area 51. That's one of the reasons I want to get out there. So I think the next major disclosure, if it's not an alien craft, which it could be, because I think they've been sort of preparing us for that. And the reason I say that, of course, Dave's not here to ask me another question, so I got to keep on going. When Steven Spielberg was trying to find money for the movie E.T., everybody just turned him down, and they said no one's going to want to go to a movie of an alien, from a UFO, flying saucer, being befriended by a bunch of kids. That's just too far fetched. But the CIA has an operation that they will fund programs, whether it's a book, an article, or a movie, whether it's for theater or for TV, on stuff on ideas they want to promote. And Spielberg had pretty much run out of options as far as money, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, came multiple millions of dollars for the beginning of the production of E.T. And the thought behind it is they want to desensitize the world from looking at alien beings. And E.T. was a funny little creature that had a weird little voice and a long finger that he could do things with. And they purposely went out. The government, the federal government, our taxpayer money paid a good part of the production of the movie E.T. because they wanted to start us down that path. And then same with my mind it's late. UFO Encounters of the Third Kind, that movie, and then there've been other ones where the aliens were looked at as friendly. And my favorite one, of course, is the Coneheads. But I think they're trying to desensitize us the fact that we have been visited, we are being visited. And I say the reason I can say that with some confidence, besides everything I've already said for the last 3 hours, I was a docent at Kitt Peak National Observatories outside of Tucson. They have 24 telescopes. 2 are radio telescopes, a 12-meter and a 25-meter. And then they have 22 optical telescopes, from a small 6-inch reflector to a 4-meter reflector, the Mayhall telescope, which at the time was the second largest telescope in the world, right behind Palomar, but it's since been dwarfed. But the 2.1 meter was controlled for 5 years and operated for 5 years by Caltech, and they were using adaptive optics and remote operation. And over the course of 5 years, in a very, very small part of the galaxy, they were able, in our galaxy, not outside of our galaxy, but just within the Milky Way, they were able to identify 8,000 exoplanets in a very, very small segment of our Milky Way. And just before I left Kitt Peak, we had a docent and astronomer meetings. All the techs and everything all got together, and the head of National Optical Astronomy Observatories and the National Science Foundation had just returned from a worldwide meeting of astronomers and telescope operations, trying to identify exoplanets. And based on the findings of all the different telescopes around the world, both optical, radio, and space-based, they came to a conclusion based on best probabilities in their mathematics that for every star in the universe, there's 1.5 planets. And out of that incredible number, and that's a number you can't even cram into your head, but out of that number, they estimate that there are 2 billion, and that's with a B, 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar-sized brown dwarf star, such as our sun, in the habitable zone with liquid water. And to quote Jodie Foster's character from Contact, "If we're the only ones, what a waste of space." You back, Dave?
I am back.
No,
I am back.
Oh, you are back. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I was talking about Kitt Peak.
No. Question that I have for you, Jim, is sure. There's a lot of stories out there about when you get to the whole disclosure movement and the way that we're not, for years we have been told, Jim, that we shouldn't trust these spooks that are out there, that we shouldn't trust these people who allegedly have been covering up this story for decades, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to trust them as being the demigods of UFO disclosure, and that all of a sudden they've had a change of heart and they have the public's best interest in mind for this subject. And I'm having, and I know a lot of other people are having, a very tough time in understanding and accepting that. What's your thoughts on this?
I think before Jimmy Carter took office, he said that he was a UFO fan. And one of the first things he would do when he became president, he was going to release everything on UFOs. Well, within 10 days after he was sworn in, someone asked him, and he denied ever saying that he would release things on UFOs. We may, when I say we, the humans, our government, we may not be the ones in charge of the dissemination of the information. We may be in a position out of fear, intimidation, or just cooperation that we don't have the ability to release the information without dire consequences. And I think the dire consequences have absolutely nothing to do with with keeping the stuff secret, other than they want to. I think there's been pushes and movements. Barry Goldwater, senator, presidential candidate back in the 60s, he started a group in the Phoenix area. It was one of the very first UFO groups. It would be like the great grandfather of MUFON. And when he became senator, now he was also a Air Force Reserve Major General, much like Jimmy Stewart. But he was gonna spill the beans. But when he became senator, and when he was running for president, all of a sudden he had disavowed ever having anything to do with forming a UFO group in the Phoenix area. So when people of power, President of the United States, a U.S. Senator, the president of a Skunk Works, when he says that they wanted to release information, and then once they were read into it, they just clammed up. They couldn't say anything. I don't think they're in charge. I think they are in charge. When I said they, the alien entities that are responsible for all these UFO sightings. I mean, I have a friend of mine, who was a retired Air Force officer. His job was to, he was a photo interpreter. His job was to photo analyze imagery out of the SR-71, the U-2, and KH-11 spy satellites. He did a lot of the photographic research from KH-11s on Desert One when that debacle, when they lost 18 guys on the Iranian hostage rescue, when the YMC-130H crashed on takeoff, and a helicopter crashed into another helicopter. He had a chance to see Polaroids. Now Polaroids, every other type of image that you can see in computers today can be manipulated. The only thing that can't is a Polaroid, because the image can only photograph what it sees. And the Gulf Breeze incident, Tom took the lighting and everything else, and everything that he was trained to do, and said there's absolutely no way, based on the location of the craft, the light, and the shattering of the vehicles below it. There was no helicopter presence. This is the Gulf Breeze craft was fairly large. It was sort of like a top hat, I think, if I remember right. But he analyzed it, and he said there's absolutely no way that this thing could be fake. First of all, you can't fake a Polaroid. Second, the object was seen by a lot of people and photographed with a Polaroid, and that the height of the object, the size of the object, the movement of the object, and the fact that it made no noise eliminated a helicopter or helicopters, and or a very, very large crane. It was in an area where that would be impossible. So he said those were real, and he's analyzed a few other images too. I think Richard Hoagland was going to get hold of him. I gave him the information how to get hold of Tom, and he was going to send him some high resolution stuff on the moon and other stuff that he wanted Tom to analyze. So it's just you just got to keep working at it. That's all.
Well, I understand that, and I just don't. To me, it just seems like a really, really easy way to manipulate an agenda. You know what I'm saying?
It's the federal government. That's what they do. They manipulate the agendas. I mean, one of the most terrifying words you can hear is says, "Hi, we're from the government. We're here to help," because you just know they're going to screw it up. And if you and I do something and it would cost $10 to complete the task, if it was the federal government, it would be $1,500. Plus you'd have other incentives to get it done on time. I mean, it's just there's an easy way, there's a hard way, then there's a government way. And I wish I knew. And again, if my friend who's with the NSA, and if they're listening, I didn't say anything. He said he retires soon, and I'm not sure where he's going to end up. But he said he does go to Hawaii on R&R, and he does go to Florida on R&R. And he's not based in the U.S. So he said, we sit down face to face. I'll give you some stuff that you can take to the bank, more or less. Wow. But they wouldn't say anything on the phone. Won't say anything in an email. So
wow.
And there's just too many people. There's too many pieces and parts to the puzzle saying that, hey, it's real. They're there. But we're not. But we're in a position where we're not permitted to release information or make it more public. Because maybe the entities that are controlling the information, i.e., the aliens, whoever they may be, do not want that information to come out. Because one of the things that holds most of the world together, and most of the world is third world. I mean, there's a lot of us. China, for example, is a 19th century country with a very, very thin, cracking veneer of 21st century technology. But for the most part, the good majority of the world, they believe in some God, whether it's Jesus Christ, whether it's Adam Smith, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Allah, whatever. If for some reason, and that's a strong religious belief, is the glue that holds a lot of civilizations together. Those of us that are educated in the first world could probably accept an alien craft landing at the White House and a little gray men coming out. And when I think of that, I think of Mars attacks. And every time I think, I just have to laugh. But if all of a sudden the world realizes that Mohammed and Buddha and Jesus Christ and other leaders were alien beings, in human form, human-like form, and our belief is in a supreme being has always been that that's our God, but it turns out that they are real, they're real beings from another world. That glue could break down and the world could turn into total chaos. If all of a sudden everything you believed in a supreme being, a God, all of a sudden you realized it wasn't a God, it was some little green man from Mars. I think the fabric and the glue that holds most of the civilized world together would come unglued. and that may be one of the reasons why they've been really slow. But there've been more and more things coming out. But and I really love science fiction. I love The Martian. Everything was real about that, according to NASA, except for when the unit blew out and everything else. It wouldn't happen quite like that. But other than that, it was good. But the spookiest and one of the scariest not UFO, but alien invasion movies was a movie called Life. And they're bringing back soil from Mars, and they're trying to see if it'll grow. They think it's sterile, and all of a sudden something happens, and you see it, and you won't sleep well at night. And maybe it's that reality. Maybe that's reality. We don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons they want to keep UFOs and alien beings under wrap, because the consequences of them coming out would not bode well for us. I don't know, but I will continue to ask questions. I will continue to dig. That's what I do. I'm that pain in the ass from Minnesota now, and then Hawaii, and now here in Arizona. So I don't think we're in control. I really don't. And I had a guy who spent 14 years in security service, and he was in our unit, and he was only there for a short time and then retired. And we were having lunch one day, and we were talking UFOs and spooky airplanes and Area 51, and this is back in the 70s. And he said, "Why do you think Operation Blue Book was terminated?" I said, "I don't know. They couldn't find anything useful." I said, "Well, it was terminated for two reasons. Either they proved without a shadow of a doubt that UFOs and alien beings were real and they're here, or they proved that they weren't." I said, "Do you want to expand upon that?" And he said, "No, but think about it." So I think that's maybe one of the reasons why Operation Blue Book was closed, because they had all the information they needed at that particular level to say, yeah, they're here. And it'd be like when a cannibal asks you for dinner, your dinner. It could be that the aliens have the same intentions. We don't know. There's people that do. I'm sure I have a friend of mine who's with the Stars, to the Stars Academy. He may know, but he won't say. He's as security conscious as anybody I know, and I've asked him a couple times, and I could tell he's uncomfortable, so I just don't. I said, "I won't. Never mind. Don't worry about it." So, but I think they're here. And I think,
friend, it is that time for me. I got to get to bed because I have to be up in the morning. But I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us, man. What an absolute pleasure, and you're one of the best for a reason, my friend.
Well, I enjoy it, and I appreciate guys like you. I mean, I went out of my way. I went to Taylor, Texas, to sit down with the UFO garage guys. They were just good guys, and I figured, well, I'm within a couple 100 miles of there. I might as well go there, and I did, and I had a great time. And Joe and Ben were fun to be with. My working, dealing with you has been fun. I'm looking forward to coming up to British Columbia and spending a couple of days with you.
Oh, dude, the door is open. The door is open. That is for sure. And I'm very excited about you coming up here too.
Well, I intend to do it. And I don't know if the border's open yet, but
not yet.
It'll be open by next spring, I hope.
There is a way to get around that. if you decide that you want to drive to Alaska, okay, you have to pass my house on the highway to get to Alaska.
Okay. You live right off the Alcan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. But, yeah. Well, like I say, hopefully things will settle down here in the U.S. and the border will be open and this COVID crap will be gone. I'm not a conspiracy person, but I think this worldwide pandemic is a bunch of crap. But that's me. So you stay healthy, my friend, and
you too, buddy.
You let me know if I can ever be of assistance. I'd be more than happy to.
Well, much love to you, my friend, and thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate that, man.
Well, it's been a very, very fast 3.5 hours. It just amazes me. Time goes by so fast.
Right. So me too.
I enjoyed every bit of it.
Me too. Take care, buddy.
Thank you for
the
invite. All right. Take care too. Bye-bye.
How awesome is Jim? How awesome is Jim? Well, on that note, I'm going to head off to bed because I got to get firewood in the morning. And we will talk to you guys very, very soon. Tomorrow night, David Weatherly and Ross Allison join us talking about their haunted series. They got a new book out called Haunted Churches that we're going to talk about. I look